Okay, welcome. Welcome to the Am Yisrael live show. You're here with me, Joseph. I'm joined by two Muslims who I bumped into at a recent protest. Well, I'm just going to mute one of you because I got a little bit of echo. Then I'll unmute. But yeah, I think Waleed, maybe it's you with a bit of background. But yeah, I was at a anti-Israel demonstration, and Waleed shouted over to me, "Zionist, we're digging your grave in Israel." And we tried to get into a bit of a debate at the time, but the police broke it up. And so I invited both Zoubida and Waleed onto the show to actually continue the conversation, to discuss what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Israel, what's either the path to peace or what is their vision. And later, AlexandrMenashe will be joining us. He's running a little bit late, so he should be jumping on the live stream in a few minutes. So I guess the opening the floor would really be, Waleed, when you shouted out to me, "Zionists, we're digging your grave in Israel," like, particularly as you know me, we've debated previously. Just explain, maybe I misheard. I've got the video. I can play back the video if you want. But yeah.
No. I would like to explain this as well, because when I said this to you, we were shouting in the protest, yeah, Zionists, we digging your grave in Palestine. So by Arabic. And you came to see what we say in the protest, yeah? So I was translating into you. That's it. And if you understand Arabic, the first sentence was before I said that, was that by Arabic. And I made it clear in the video. I'm translating it to you.
Okay, perfect. I didn't get that because I don't speak great Arabic. I didn't know what chant they were chanting. And so
no, I told you.
You were just translating what some of the extremists were chanting at me. So when they were chanting at me, "Zionists, we're digging your grave," you were just saying basically this is what they're saying.
It was about you. It was about the Zionists in Israel who killing Palestinians. It's a protest, and we're outside the Israeli embassy. Everyone is emotion, angry, and they're going to protest outside. You kill children in Palestine, and we're going to protest and peacefully. And for no reason, I found you in front of us, and I know who you are, what you're doing for Israel. So, are you coming here to provoke us? Are you coming here? Why are you coming here for? Yeah, you coming in front of the people who shouting that you shouldn't be there.
And so perfect. I think that's a great. So for me, I believe the only path we have to peace is through dialogue. It's through people like Zoubida, Waleed, myself, AlexandrMenashe, getting together and actually talking about what's going on and how do we forge peace. And I think what you'll know, when you come to a pro-Israel demonstration, you will never hear, in the UK certainly, never, ever hear anybody calling for the death of Palestinians. The chants you'll hear at our demonstration are no to terror, yes to peace. Am Yisrael, the children of, the people of Israel live. Like, literally, our chants are about peace and survival. I turned up at an anti-Israel demonstration for dialogue, and we've talked before, so I know that both of you two can talk and do talk civilly to people that are willing to engage. But for me, that protest perfectly summarizes what the difference between the Zionist mindset and the anti-Zionist mindset.
Well, you will never hear this word, this what we saying in our protests, because your people know no one is dying, no children is dying in Israel, like how you burning and killing our children there. You know, your people are living there arrogant and killing people and just counting them numbers when it's lives dying, whole families, the whole children dying, you know. And you want me to not shout when I'm in emotion in my protest and shout, yeah, down Israel, and I wish it will go. Yeah, sure that you killing children. You are. Can you not see all the videos?
So let's deal with it. So I think you raise a really valid, not valid, but you raise a concern which many of Israel's opponents raise, and it's this perception that Israel kills children. So first you have to look at conflict. So if you look at conflicts around the world, there are very few which don't unfortunately have civilian casualties. Most conflicts tragically result in the loss of life of civilians. And every
there is no excuses for what you're doing. There is no excuse. Don't try to say any excuse. No excuse for
let me finish it. This only works if we listen to each other. So I'll listen.
Okay, but
we're not in speaker's corner. We're not in speaker's corner. I won't interrupt anything you say. You have Wallahi, you have my word, I won't interrupt you. I'll try my utmost to keep my mouth quiet when you're speaking, but you have to give me the same courtesy, because otherwise we just talk over each other and no one hears anything. So what I was saying, in every conflict around the world, children, women, parents, adults, civilians tragically lose their lives. What we have to do here is look at two things. One, intention, and two, proportion. And so if we look at proportion, the Israeli policy is, as bad as this flare-up has been, as bad as this flare-up has been, we're talking just over 200 casualties on both sides, Granted, there's a lot more casualties in Gaza than there has been in Israel. Israel, I think the death count is 13 at the moment. In Gaza, I think the last time I checked was at 230, or 13, but just over 200 dead in Gaza. Literally, that's a 30-minute, that's 5 minutes in Syria. That's 5 minutes in Yemen. And in all of these conflicts, children are killed. The second thing is intention. Why did children end up with casualties? So let's look at the facts. Gaza fire rockets from civilian neighborhoods. They have their command center under hospitals. They have their weapons are stashed in houses, and they're literally they use media centers to design their weapons. So they are firing from civilian populations and using children as shields. And Israel will do everything it can to minimize civilian casualties. And so if we look at Hamas, Hamas have already killed 16 of their own people with rockets that misfired and landed in Gaza. 30, at least 30 of those children. And so the other thing I just bring into that, Israel will go to great lengths to avoid civilian casualties. When they took down the Al-Jallah Tower, not one casualty. You literally see children on the street filming the buildings that they know are going to get demolished by the IDF. How do they know they're going to get demolished? Because first the IDF rings the building, tells the civilians to leave. Then they drop what's called a roof knock, a non-lethal explosion above the roof to warn them within 5 minutes there's going to be a strike on this building, get out. And then they will abort the mission if they see children in the vicinity. Hamas, on the other side, will fire directly at civilian infrastructure indiscriminately. So if we agree that targeting children is wrong, you should be condemning with us Hamas for, one, putting their weapons behind their civilians, behind their children, and two, for firing indiscriminately at Israeli Jewish, Arab, Druze, Christian, Muslim children. We should be on the same side condemning Hamas.
Okay, can I respond? Can I respond, please, to that? Yeah.
Please.
So the fact that you're trying to downplay the IDF specifically targeting children is actually quite shocking, because I've seen multiple footage of bombs specifically being targeted at civilian homes. Second of all, you have to understand that the IDF's actions are being backed by religious fanatics. You had the King Torah book that was published by an extremist rabbi who explicitly said in his book that you should be killing Palestinian children so that if they grow up, they might kill you. So kill them whilst they're young. Yeah. You don't want to talk about that. You can pull faces all you like.
Happy to talk about that. Which rabbi is it?
Let me finish.
Don't interrupt.
So as we can clearly see, click 2 minutes, Waleed. As you can clearly see, when it comes to the casualties of children, first of all, I condemn killing of all innocent children, all innocent people, whether they're Jewish, whether they're Muslim. This is not what a Muslim is about. But as you can see, when it comes to the casualties, there are more Palestinian children being killed. So we cannot sit here and downplay that. Look, if they weren't specifically trying to kill children, how come the casualties continue to go up? Yeah. And like I said, back to the second point, you have extremist Jewish rabbis who are promoting the killing of children within their scriptures, and they haven't even been jailed for it. That's the worst thing about it. So let's not, and last point, because I heard you say this before in one of your previous debates, you tried to speak about Syria and Yemen. One issue at a time. Don't try to use the issue that's happening in Yemen and Syria, these conflicts that the Western imperialists have caused, to try and downplay the suffering of the Palestinians. Because even though there's stuff going on there, does not mean that we'll ever forget about our Palestinian brothers and sisters.
Okay, so Waleed, did you want to jump in as well, or do you want me to respond to that?
Yeah. I just want to respond to what you said, because you said they called them before they destroy any building. But I understand the Arabic, and I saw your Solidja. There is videos when they talking to the owners of the video, and they tell them you have 10 minutes to leave the house, and they begging them, can we take our stuff? And they don't respond. And this the reason of that, they saying that this is because the Hamas shooting rockets from the building. Physically, you cannot shoot a rocket from a building. The house will fall. You cannot do that. And you try to use other excuses because there is war in Syria and there is war in Palestine and the people dying there. Okay, there is people dying here as well. What is the reason of killing all families and most of it is kids? And I can see, and I saw also videos from your people in Israel, also by Arabic, saying that they killed them because they scared of them growing up and join Hamas or join them. So they judging them. They call these kids terrorists and we need to kill them. Why are you saying here? You grow up here in England, so you have good manners and you speak from good mindset. But the mindset that we see from Israel is different, completely different. You know, they savages with us. They burn the children. What is the reason? There is no excuse to burn the children. He is not going to harm you with any way. You know, and if you and the Jewish lived in Palestine for thousands of years under the Muslim, and all their places are saved, preserved. They lived peacefully for 2,000 years, and no one touched them. But once the Jew entered again Palestine, you start killing, we dividing. War started in Syria, in Lebanon, all the area there.
Okay, so perfect. There's a lot to unpack there, Waleed. So I think one of the best things we can do is if we take one point at a time and see if we can debunk some of what the other's saying. So if I'm saying things that you don't think's true, and you can show me the evidence, I'll accept that. Okay, I've got my facts wrong. And what I'd hope is in this conversation, you will do the same. And so one of your key arguments you opened up with were, and then Zoubida, I'll definitely touch on your points as well. We'll talk about if the IDF is controlled by a rabbi that's telling them to kill children. But we have to deal with each one of these points one at a time. So we'll deal with the one that's freshest, which is, can Hamas fire rockets from buildings? And you're of the opinion that they can't. And so even before we get to that, we actually have found something that we agree on, which, Baruch Hashem, Alhamdulillah, we have some common ground. And that is that the IDF do actually warn the building to be emptied. And so you've heard the telephone conversations in Arabic. You've heard an IDF soldier ringing up and speaking in Arabic to the owner of the building and telling them that they have to vacate. So already we can say there's one thing that Hamas don't do. Hamas don't warn where they're building, which buildings they're going to hit. Israel does. It's a demolition. It's not there to kill. If you want to wipe out families, children, you don't ring them up and warn them. So at least we've already found some common ground.
So again, please don't downplay it, because again, even though there's a so-called warning, that's not every single case, because there's still casualties.
So 100%, Zoubida, you're absolutely right. If there's a high-ranking Hamas official, they won't give a warning. They'll take him out. The purpose of this particular Israel's defensive maneuvers in this war is Hamas launched a war on Israel. They fired 4,000 rockets, and in response, Israel is taking out Hamas. They're taking out their leadership, and they're taking out their weapons infrastructure. So Hamas are unable to rain terror on Israel in a hurry.
Sorry, because I knew you was going to come on to Hamas. Hamas was created in the 1980s. Pre-Hamas, when Israel was continuing to ethnically cleanse people, what was the excuse for that?
So again, ethnically, we're jumping around, but ethnically cleansed, the population, the Palestinian population has continued to grow. Within what you'd consider, or certainly the international community would consider Israel, we'd call Little Israel. The population of of Arabs has remained around the same, around 20% since 1948. If you want to talk ethnic cleansing, there's not one Jew that lives under the Palestinian Authority. Not one Jew. The Jews were ethnically cleansed by the Arabs, but we can deal with ethnically cleansing later, and we'll stick to begin with the point of, can you fire a rocket from a building? Waleed, simple question, do you seriously believe that Hamas are unable to fire rockets from buildings? And if I show you video evidence to the contrary, will you take that point back and accept that not only do Israel warn Palestine,
if you can show me a video if you can show me a video that Hamas shooting this rocket from a civilian house where his kids and the women they live, where his people live in this house. Yeah,
you changed what you said. I can show you Hamas firing.
No. Show me that. Okay. So all these towers, which was nearly hundreds of people living there, and you
what
destroy
if
you
they're
make
firing a
them.
rocket from next to a house? I mean, surely if they're firing a rocket from next to a house, then maybe it's not in the building, but the point stands that. So, for example, I don't know the name of your friend Waleed, the lady, Free Palestine. Zoubida. Okay. So, as Zoubida said, how is it that there's still children dying? Well, where they don't give a warning. So, another example. Let's say that Israel has surveillance of Gaza using drones, and they can see when people are about to fire rockets, and they can actually take out these rocket teams in real time whilst they're firing rockets. Now, obviously, in those circumstances, it's not possible to give a warning to any civilians. Now, we know as a fact there's actual footage that's been released by the IDF where in cases where they actually see women and children or civilians in the vicinity, they'll call off a strike. But generally speaking, if they can't see who's in a building, if it's literally a question of preventing someone from firing off deadly weapons, then they will take defensive measures to stop that. And when it comes down to it, that is, in terms of international law and in terms of, I would also argue in terms of morality, I think that's perfectly justified, and it's something that shouldn't be held against Israel, particularly from the point of view that this is a standard that's only applied to Israel. If you take the same or similar actions of any other democratic armies, now forget some of the other armies in the Middle East, they don't follow international law at all. Look at the Houthis in Yemen, the Saudis as well, to be perfectly honest, the Syrians, ISIS. None of them have, pay the Russians. None of them pay any attention to international law. But amongst countries that pay heed to international law, Israel's record in terms of avoiding civilian casualties is really something that should be lauded. The extent that Israel goes to avoid killing innocent people.
And just to really hammer home that point, Waleed.
No, I agree with. Yeah, can I answer that? Because this man just said that Israel always avoid killing civilians. I'm from Egypt.
I didn't say always. I said Israel. Excuse me.
Let me finish.
Always. No, because you're putting words into my mouth.
That's
you said I always. Can you? You said I said always. I did not say always. So do not put words into my mouth. I did not say always. Sure. If you want an honest debate me according to what I say and not what you imagine I said.
Okay. So I'm gonna say that Israel always use killing its children and the civilian to put pressure in the countries to do what they want. And the first example was that the Balfour Declaration. They bombed a hotel for the British people. Was in like 52 British man died in Palestine, 1947. No, not 1947. It was 1911, something like that. 1911, 1912. And 52, everyone can go check it in YouTube. They bombed the hotel for the British to force them to get this promise from Balfour. And with us as the Egyptian, when we had our war with them for Sinai, they always choose to hit schools while the children are inside studying and there is famous accident called Bahr al-Baqar, which is famous. The mass shoot, they hit this school. So that's what they always do to take what they want. That's my point. And they have big record in killing civilian in Sabra and Shatila, also in Lebanon, big massacre. This is history. We cannot change it. And they now go in the media and they say what we want and they make people believe it. There is history documented. There is massacre called Sabra and Shatila. And let me finish, please.
I'm going to jump in because we're going all over the place and we have to stick with one subject.
No, I'm not going all over the place. I'm saying that Israel like to hit civilian.
Waleed, Alexander as well. We can get onto King David. We can get onto civilians. We can get but first, just to address the charge, one charge at a time. And so you said that it's impossible Hamas to fire from buildings. You then slightly changed what you said. So I just pulled up a screenshot, which I'm sure everybody read and everybody saw. The United Nations Relief Work Agency, which is staffed overwhelmingly, like something like 90-something% Palestinian staff. The United Relief Work Agency came out and condemned Hamas for hiding rockets in their schools. Yeah. That's not a friend of Israel. They're one of the biggest critics of Israel in the world. And so they're saying that Hamas are doing this. So can we just accept and cut the BS that Hamas fires upon Israel from civilian neighborhoods?
Okay, let me respond to that, because again, you're doing a lot of scapegoating. Yeah, like I said to you, prior to Hamas even existing, the Israeli IDF regime has been openly persecuting Palestinians, committing acts against humanity, acts against international law. And even Netanyahu is so shocked that the UN wants to investigate him for war crimes. Now, second, you can make looks all you like, mate. Second of all, can you
address it's the ICC, it's not the UN, and Netanyahu isn't shocked.
No, he is shocked. He is shocked because he was actually, there's footage of him really shocked that they want to investigate him for war crimes. And that's why it's been delayed. Right. Second of all, I want you to speak about the King Torah scripture by an extremist rabbi who explicitly says, I can read it for you now, so since you want to bring up your evidence. Right. No charges on racist King Torah's text. Israel's Attorney General has decided not to prosecute two rabbis who wrote a controversial religious text proposing circumstances in which it is permissible to kill non-Jews even if they pose no direct physical threat to violence. He also says in his scripture, his name is Rabbi Yitzhak Shapira of Yitzhak, who wrote in 2009 that it is permissible for Jews to kill non-Jews, including children who threaten Israel. Says that, and he also says that he has no regrets, not about the book and not about what God Almighty creates with its publication. Now, obviously, this sentiment has been used by far-right Israelis, which do exist. So what do you have to say about that?
So first, quite openly, you have people who have racist views in Israel. You have people who have racist views amongst the Palestinians, amongst the Egyptians. What I would say, So
can I come in on this?
First thing I just want to address is it divided Israeli society. The overwhelming majority of people are opposed to the sentiment. It's been massively misquoted, and I'm sure Alexander's going to jump in and provide the context of the book and what it's talking about. But it's going to biblical passages talking about a people called Amalek who don't exist anymore, and it's basing rulings based off historical context that happened thousands of years ago. However, what I will say, because I don't like apologizing for things that I don't agree with, I do not agree with, and the overwhelming majority of Israelis do not agree with the killing of any innocent civilian. That's why we go to great lengths to preserve life. You will be able to find, Zoubida, Waleed, you will be able to find instances of Israelis saying and doing racist things, just like I will be able to find instances of British people doing it, of Egyptian people doing it. What we have to focus on in this debate is what the state sanctions, what the state does, because that's what we're debating. I thought I lost my time. We're debating the state. We're not debating individuals. And so at a state level, we've already shown how Israel goes to great lengths to preserve civilian life. In contrast, Hamas targets civilians. So it doesn't matter what one random rabbi wrote in a book that barely anybody read. What matters is what do the state say? What does Hamas say? What does the Israeli government say? What do they do? And we've already shown how Hamas targets Israeli. You haven't argued or disagreed with Hamas targeting and killing Israeli civilians. We all agree that's what they do. Let's look at facts. You're worried about what some random rabbi wrote in a book. We're worried about the 4,000 rockets raining down on our civilians, on our Arab children, on our Jewish children.
Stop taking more houses then. Stop taking more houses. Simple. Which are we want from you? Stop taking more houses, and every single will stop. That's what why Israel every day try to take houses, and they kick these people for outside their houses. People live for hundreds of years.
Does it not strike you?
That's what started
Which
the
houses
problem.
have people lived in?
You really believe it's an everyday occurrence? Can I ask you? You really believe this sort of thing happens every day? that every day there's Palestinians
It doesn't matter if it
living in
happens
one.
every day.
No, but I'm asking, because
Every
that's the words you're using, and I think it's really important
every year
to have an honest dialogue where we're careful. Look, people are dying. It's a horrible situation, and it's incumbent on us who are not directly there.
People are killed, please. Don't say dying. Say killed. People are killed, please. Don't say dying. Say people killed. Don't say dying.
It's true.
Please.
People are killed on both sides, and it's horrible. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah,
so
but
let's take a step back and be careful about the. Yeah, but we have to also be careful about using precise language and saying things which we should all be. I'm interested in the truth. I'm not interested in presenting things in one-sided way or another. I want to know what's true. So that means I'm careful with the language that I use. I don't say this is always happens, or all Palestinians, or this or that, or something happens every day. If something doesn't happen every day, then if you say that something happens every day, then you're saying something that isn't true. And you should be responsible.
The fact that it's happening since 1947 and continues to happen, I don't care if it's a day. The fact that children are being killed in one day and people are being displaced, one day is enough as far as I'm concerned. Second of all, we have to get to the source. It's easy for you guys in your position to say, oh, we just want peace, because you're not the victims in this situation. Right?
Oh,
you're not the victims in this situation, because before, Muslim, Jews, and Christians were living in peace together. What you guys done is you overstepped the mark, yeah, and you've tried to you've overstepped the mark and you've gone too far, and that's why you're smiling, because it's not your people who are being displaced and moved out their home.
I'm smiling because of your language. It's so inflammatory.
That's fine. But again, we have to get to the source of the problem. We have to get to why we're here today, 2021. How come there's 38 children since the 10th of May who have been killed by the IDF terrorist regime?
So can I just?
Well, I mean, we don't know that.
Let me just respond back, because it's the essence of the conflict. Basically, Zoubida, what you're saying is, as long as the Jew lives under the Muslim, we can coexist.
I didn't say that.
No.
That's effectively
we overstep the boundary.
What we've got.
Don't put words in our mouths.
This is us. So tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm putting words in your mouth and I'm incorrect, then please correct me.
Yeah.
But I'll ask a question. There's only one place where Jews are indigenous, and that is Israel. It's where we come from. It's the only place we have any claim for land. And so it's a very simple question. I believe.
What's your evidence? What's your evidence?
Just let me pose my question, and then you can ask me a question. So I believe that Jews and Arabs can coexist both in the same state and in separate states, side by side. I believe that an Israeli state can coexist next to an Egyptian state, potentially next to a Palestinian state. But I believe that we've tried living under people and we've been oppressed. You may paint this picture where you think Jews live perfectly under every caliphate. We didn't. Some were very well, we were treated very well, others we were treated brutally, just like Muslims were treated brutally under some caliphates and others they weren't. Under some khulafa they were bad and some khulafa they were good. But we've come and said we don't want to live under anybody else anymore. We want to be able to defend ourselves. If someone attacks us, we don't want to pay the jizya so a Muslim army can come and save us. We want to defend ourselves. We want to be autonomous in our land. We want to be liberated in our land, and we want to be able to defend ourselves when those seek to annihilate us. And the state of Israel has already saved millions of Jews. Like over 1 million Jews have been saved by the state of Israel already. No longer. So we don't want to live under Christianity. We don't want to live under Islam. We don't want to live under any other people anymore, because it didn't work. We tried it for 2,000 years and we got persecuted big time. And enough is enough. We fight back now. If you come to kill us, we fight back. So my question to you is very, very simple. Can either of you accept the state of Israel as it is today, defined as a Jewish state? Can you accept that? Because if you can accept that state, if the two of you, who I believe are devout Muslims, if you can, there's hope for us. If you can't, if you still believe the Muslim armies are going to march on Haifa and liberate it from the Jews, then we have a problem.
Okay, in a short answer, no. Yeah. And I'd like to sort of break down some of your points that you were saying there. You talked about indigenous. As far as I know, you're Irish, yeah? So you're not indigenous to Israel, my friend. You've said that to me before in Speakers Corner.
No, I told you, just because it's about me, I will interject.
Yeah,
I said I've got mixed ancestry. I've got Jewish, I've got Irish, I'm very eclectic mix, which is why I look the way I'm the exception. The overwhelming majority of Jews aren't as mixed as I am.
Yeah.
I'm
so
quite
you're not indigenous, though, are
but I don't. I've got a flag behind me. There's a a rabbi who's sitting behind me over my shoulder. I'll go get him in a minute. Who is my
indigenous to Israel, my friend, based on your genetics?
But I descend from Israel. I've got Israeli DNA. I've got Jewish DNA that goes all the way back. I'll share my DNA results if you like.
I've got Jewish DNA myself, mate. Yeah, I'm 7%.
So then I don't claim to be Ashkenazi.
7%, yeah, people know
7%,
this.
oh, so.
And alhamdulillah,
the sister is a real sister.
I'm probably more indigenous than you. But the second point is this. You talked about indigenous people. More than 1 million Europeans are living in Israel right now. And to be honest with you, we cannot determine whether they are indigenous to the land. You've got people from America coming in, converts. Some of these people are converts. Yeah, so you can't sit there and claim that everybody that's there is indigenous to the land, because they're not. What you're doing is you're actually expelling the indigenous people out of the land. Third point, when you sat there and spoke about we don't want to be under a Muslim rule, with all due respect, the golden age for Jews was under Islamic Spain. Yeah, that's just a fact, bro. Yeah, but you had senior Jewish scholars and viziers who were in prominent position under Islamic Spain. You had Jews living in North Africa as well under the Muslims as well. After, and I know you've probably heard this 100 times, but after the Romans expelled you, it was the Muslims that let you back in. So this resentment that you have to the people that literally looked after you is almost a case of biting the hand that feeds you. We're not the Romans, yeah? We're not the Nazis. We're not the Babylonians. So this sort of resentment that you have to Muslims, out of all of the people that persecuted you, you were safest under the Muslims. And that's just a fact.
Zoubida, you let your guard slip there. Your language biting the hand that feeds you clearly shows where you put Jews and Muslims on the thing. Jews below, and you're feeding us.
No, the phrase was always under as well. As long as we're under you,
if I help
then that's
you,
okay.
If I help you, yeah, and I allow you to come into my home, I look after you. Yeah, I give you a safe haven. And then when you start to get up and you start to almost throw it back in my face, is that not a case of biting the hand that feeds you?
So let's talk about the hand that feeds us. Have you heard? You know the Al-Muhadim from Morocco, yeah? So they came after your so-called golden age, Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus was good. I'm not going to argue against Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus was good. The golden age, by the way, for Jews was actually the time of Musa alayhi salam. Moses. After Moses, the golden age.
When you were exiles and you rebelled against God, that's not golden. You were cursed.
Pardon?
How can you call the time of Musa a golden age?
Because when we received the Torah, the most important,
you rebelled against your prophet.
The most important central text to Judaism is the Torah. We received that at the time of Moses. After that, you could maybe go to any of the prophets, or you could go to the Mishnayot, the Talmudic periods. These are our golden age. This is where our central texts were written. With the greatest respect, you know very little about Judaism, and that's fine. You're a Muslim. You're not supposed to. But please, please, please don't have the chutzpah to come on a Jewish channel and tell Jews when their golden period was. You're not feeding me, Zoubida. What happened in Morocco? What happened in Al-Andalus? How did Al-Andalus come to an end for the Jews? What happened? Okay, I'll tell you. What happened was Waleed, I'll just answer, and then I'll come to it. The Almohads crossed into Al-Andalus. They conquered it. These are Muslims. They threatened the Jews. Either you convert to Islam or we slaughter you. They slaughtered hundreds of thousands of Jews, and the rest were forced to leave. That's why Maimonides, one of my favorite rabbis, was forced to flee from Al-Andalus to Egypt. And Waleed, he moved to your country. He moved to Fustat, just outside Cairo. Sorry, you were going to say something, Waleed.
What happened to the Jew after the Holocaust?
What happened to the Jews after the Holocaust? So in the Arab world, they were basically ethnically cleansed.
Sorry?
So after the Holocaust, the Jews were ethnically cleansed from the Arab world. Effectively, there used to be a million Jews. Sorry, basically 1 million Jews living in the Arab world. Today, there's 3,000. So that's what happened to the Jews after the Holocaust.
Okay. No. That's not what happened. What happened after the Holocaust is that they ran away from Germany, and the Arab people, and they came on ships, and there is picture, I can send it to you. The Jew people was coming on ships saying, we lost our families and we lost our lives. Please don't make us lose our hopes. And this picture is documented. And they came. A lot of disease happened to them because Hitler was trying medicines on them and doing experiments on them. They came running away from starvation, and the Arab people who looked after them and they opened the hospital for them, and they were running away from Europe. Yeah, and you say, and that this from 60, 70 years ago, and you saying that the Jew, we didn't look after the Jew people.
And Waleed, can I just
Waleed, your history is really, really, really bad.
Sorry, can I just
I can say that particular boat.
If I send you the evidence, you're gonna share it now?
Yeah, but that boat, everybody's seen a picture of that boat. That boat is called the Exodus, which had this sign that, yes, it's true that the Jews hung a banner from the boat, appealing to the British, but the British didn't pay any attention to that. So they towed the boat, the Exodus, and I actually know someone who was on this boat, by the way, a refugee from Poland. So what actually happened with this boat is the British intercepted it on the way to mandatory Palestine. They towed it to Haifa port. They put all the refugees on 3 separate boats and sent them back to Europe. So I'm afraid that you really need to look into this, because it's just another example of
where is Israel now? Why Israel not in Europe now?
Because Israel in Europe.
Israel is between the Arab and no one kicked anyone to Europe. That's why millions of people came to Israel, and that's why what you were saying, Joseph, that there was a lot of Jew between the Arab people, and now there are 3,000 because Israel invited all the Jew around the whole world to come. Even they took them by the army from Ethiopia. They sent the army to take 3 boats from Ethiopia. You take the 1 million from Morocco because your invitation, because Israel invite them. So, no one kicked the Jew. There is no evidence to prove that the Jew was oppressed in Morocco, Egypt, or Algeria, or anywhere. They choose to leave. Even their houses till this day. Let me finish, please. Even their houses till this day still exist. We have synagogues in Egypt. We have synagogues in Morocco. We have houses still closed till this day. No one even talked to their houses. And the 30% of your community coming back to claim it this day is because they don't agree with Israel. And what are you doing? We have a lot of Israeli people leaving Israel now and running away because they see that their government killing children and they will never give them peace. They see that what you're doing is wrong. They don't agree, and they spoke out.
So, Waleed, let me deal with those points. You made a lot, and I think the key point I want to point out here, I pointed out in every debate when we go down this path. So the argument is that the Jews left the Arab world because they wanted to go to Israel. So what I like to do in this situation is I look at what happened in Europe. So the Holocaust, we can all agree, there was a Holocaust, 6 million Jews were slaughtered. It was a tragedy which had nothing to do with the majority of Muslims in the world. Yes, there were some Muslims involved in it, but most Muslims weren't involved, and we can agree with that. The Jews of Europe stayed in Europe despite facing the worst genocide the Jews have faced in thousands of years. They remained there to the extent there were still pogroms. There were still massacres of Jews in Poland after the Holocaust because there were still Jews there. Then we look at what happened in the Arab world. The Jews fled the Arab world because the persecution was so intense. Yeah, in some countries they were kicked out. In others, there were massacres on the streets and they fled. They left behind hundreds of 2 minutes, Waleed, I didn't interrupt you. They left behind hundreds of billions of dollars of property, which you just referenced. You said their houses are still there. They haven't been able to claim any of that property. Yeah. So ask yourself this question. Why would you leave behind hundreds of billions of dollars of property? Why would you flee a land to go to Israel, which was impoverished, where you had nothing, where the Jews of Europe who went through the Holocaust didn't flee once the Holocaust had ended? So there are still more Jews in Europe than there are in the entire Arab world. The Jews of the Arab world didn't leave because they wanted to go to Israel. They left because they faced extreme persecution, and they left behind all of their possessions.
No, the reason is after what happened to them from the Holocaust, Germany paying billions of dollars, and they invited everyone in promise of nice life, the houses, and the money. And most of the Jew, all their work are religious job, which is not really work, and they get in bed for nothing. Just to go there and you have heavy life as your country promises, and that's how you started it. That you take until this day billions of dollars from Germany, and that was nice, attractive to a lot of Jews around the whole world. And that's what happened. And I said to you that no one take their houses. If we talk there, how I would say it's still this day closed and no one took there. You know,
so I think the Prime Minister of Lebanon lives in a Jewish house at the moment. I think, from memory, just to throw that out there.
So Waleed, so if Jewish emigres from the Arab world want to sell their properties, would you say that they have the right to go back to the lands that their parents or grandparents came from, and to sell those properties and to take those assets, take the cash out of that country and carry on with their lives wherever they are at the moment?
We have Jews documented visiting Morocco, and they documented their old houses with their old days, you know. And
Morocco is a very tolerant country. It's probably the only place in the Arab world.
Yeah, what country did they attack the Jew and kill them in the street?
So literally even Morocco, they kill Jews on the street. Even Morocco.
In which accident?
Let's take Egypt as an example. So an Egyptian Jew, let's just take it in the abstract. It doesn't have to be a specific person. Let's see if we can agree on the principle. An Egyptian Jew whose grandparents left Egypt, and let's say for the moment you're saying they left voluntarily, and we're saying that they fled out of fear, but let's park that for one moment. So somebody whose grandparents lived in Egypt before 1951, and who now lives in Israel, their grandparents have the deeds to their property. Can they go back to Egypt and claim that property and sell that property and take the money out of Egypt?
Yes, they can.
And that's your personal opinion, or that's the position of the
country? Yes, they can.
Government. That's your position.
Yes, they can. They can come back. They can claim it. They can buy it, sell it, live inside it as they want. If they own it and they have the evidence they own it, that's what happening. And until this day,
they can take the money to any country they choose.
We spend the money in your holy places in Egypt to preserve it from hundreds of years till this day, and you can go and check it. There is big famous synagogue who is the historical one in Egypt, and Egypt just spend nearly $10 million to preserve it and make it look nice, better, and open the gate. While there is 11 Jewish family only in Egypt. That's what. But this synagogue in Alexandria, and you can go and check that.
So I'm well aware of the efforts of the Egyptian government to renovate. I don't know the name of the synagogue, but to renovate this particular synagogue.
Can I just say a point to what's his name, Joseph, because I was speaking about the golden age, or one of the golden age for the Jews under Islamic Spain. So there's a man called Samuel ibn Nagrela, or his Jewish name Shmuel Halevi bin Yusuf, who was because you have to understand, during Moorish Spain there was different dynasties.
That is not evident.
Well, let me finish. There was different dynasties, right? You had different rulers. You had some just rulers, you had some corrupt rulers. Now this Jewish man was actually a tax collector, right? So you got a Jew collecting tax off of Muslims. He was also a secretary to the Grand Vizier. You had another guy called Hasdai ibn Shaprut, who was a foreign minister of Cordoba. So I'm trying to show you that there were Jews who were incorporated within the Muslim system during one of their golden ages. So let's not try to downplay it the way that you did.
Zoubida, you're missing what I'm saying. I said the Al-Andalus was good for the Jews. It wasn't the ultimate period, but it was good for the Jews. It was actually a Jewish general, Ka'ul al-Yahudi, who actually led the Muslim armies across the ocean for the Mediterranean from northern Africa to Al-Andalus when it was first conquered. This is my period. These are the rabbis I personally study. This is the tradition I follow. I follow a Maimonidean tradition. So you're not schooling me. I'm just telling you from a Jewish position. From a Jewish position, the Talmudic academies are our golden period. The Torah is our golden period. And Al-Andalus was good. But as I said to Waleed, Al-Andalus was brought to its end by a Muslim invading army that conquered Al-Andalus and killed hundreds of thousands of Jews and threatened the rest that if they didn't convert to Islam, they'd be killed. Which has been my point. Which has been my point consistently. Some khulafa are good for the Jews, some khulafa are bad. But whereas the Jews are always good for the Jews. So we'll take our chances with the Jews rather than the Muslims.
Yeah, but you're saying right now you won't be ruled by Muslims, right? So why?
Yeah, because what happened in Al-Andalus? What happened in Al-Andalus? What happened in What happened to Al-Andalus? Who was it conquered by? Muslims. The Almohads. What did they do to the Jews? They slaughtered them. That's my point. We don't want to take our chances whether the Muslim ruler is going to be good or bad. Some will rule in our interest, some won't. We don't want to take that chance. Now, to bring it back to what Waleed is saying, Waleed, this is just one article. There's many all over the internet.
I just want to say something about this bigotry. You know, you live in it in the bigotry and we talking. That's what the Zionist system doing. To leave it and to talk, so it's gonna be fact. But you have no evidence to back what you're saying. I lived in Egypt. I just came in Egypt for 6 years, but all my life I was in Egypt, and there is a street called the Jew Street. There is a street called that, and the post code, everything till this day. You know, there is nothing, or we talk there, or nothing at all changed. We Muslim, we don't do what's happening in Israel, and they're taking houses, destroying mosques, entering holy places, and we don't do this stuff. And you always share this picture just to make it fact. You know, people saw it now in the screen, people using the media like that, and 150 billion the Jew left. No, it's wrong. Never happened like that. The fact is, if you go Egypt, you will visit every single Jew and look how it is, and think who's spent the money preserving it. Think who looked after it. Where was you? Where was the Jew? Why didn't came and look after or check these holy places? No one cared. No one cared.
You asked the perfect question. You asked where were the Jews?
Even better than the Jew. We looked after the holy places better than you. You know
Waleed, Waleed, there were 57,000 Egyptian Jews in the world. 57,000. Where do you think they live?
Where?
Where do the Egyptian Jews live today? 57,000 of them.
What do you mean?
We know this. They live in Israel. Yeah, what's the point?
Thank you, Zoubida.
No,
they live in Israel. There are 12 Jews left in Egypt. 12 Jews. 12 Jews left in Egypt. This is your literally. You look at what's the picture of Africa, Northern Africa and the East. Basically, the religious minorities are on the decline. Egypt, the Coptics are being attacked. The Jews have been driven out. The only
I say something?
You can in a minute. Let me finish. The only place where the diversity of religion is protected in the entire Middle East and North Africa is Israel. There are hundreds of mosques, freedom of religion, Arab political parties, complete equality between Jews, Christians, Muslims, Druze under the state. In Egypt, Coptics are persecuted. Jews were driven out. There were thousands and thousands of thousands. There are 57,000.
So much, bro. You guys are
Zoubida,
Christians as well. And there's this religious diversity and this beautiful kumbaya tolerance is happening. You have Jews, extremist Jews, even a part of their doctrine. What do they view Jesus as? They don't respect Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, you have Orthodox Jews who don't respect Jesus, bro. So stop acting like it's this kumbaya of Jews and Christians living together, because that's not what's happening in Israel.
I want to also add to Zoubida's point. I want to also add the Zoubida point.
What do you think about Jesus? Let me know.
Egypt, the situation in Egypt. Where's Zoubida, please?
So I'll deal with both questions.
I'll answer that question. So we think that Jesus was a Jewish rebel against the Romans who was caught by the Romans and crucified. No more, no less. Right? We have been persecuted for 2,000 years in his name. That's a different question. So what do we think of the? We might have some opinions about the Christian religion, but certainly in terms of Jesus, we acknowledge that he is a prophet in Islam, and we acknowledge that he is considered a holy person to Christians. But obviously, we're Jews.
But we don't say that.
I don't think that's controversial to say
that. That's your opinion.
That's unreasonable.
That's your opinion. It's just like we don't. Sorry, sir. You have religious extremists. Would you not say that opinion of Jesus being a rebel might cause some anti-Christian sentiments among some Jews?
Zoubida, I'm just going to. I'm going to agree with you. Zoubida, if you listen, I'm going to agree with you. Judaism has extremists like every other religion. We have people who have negative views of Jesus. I'm not going to pretend that every Jew is indifferent on Jesus. There are Jews who have positive views, and the majority of Jews have indifferent views. That's fine. Simple question back to you. What do you think of Krishna? Or what do you think of any pagan god? What do you think of any pagan god?
We say it's idolatry, yeah.
So what happens to Joseph Smith Jr.?
No, Zoubida, just 2 minutes. What happens to idolaters in an Islamic state?
Idolaters. I don't know why you're turning this into a theological debate.
Because you brought up religion and you tried to use Jesus against us. So I'm using your same arguments against you.
There's no Hindus in Israel.
Don't run away from the question, Zoubida. I answered your question honestly. AlexandrMenashe answered your question honestly.
Side by side in Israel in a positive atmosphere, which is not the case, bro. There's no Christians, no Hindus in Palestine.
We answered your question. Answer our question. We answered about Jesus. Answer our questions. What happens to idolaters in an Islamic state? That's run by the Sharia.
I'll answer your question. Under an Islamic state, there will be no idolaters.
Why? What happened to them?
Why would an idolater want to live in an Islamic state?
Because they were living there before it was conquered, which happened in many of the expansionist wars.
They stayed and debated.
If it's a full-blown Islamic state, there would be no idolaters, bro. It would be fully Muslim.
Yeah, what happens if there were idolaters living in the land that Muslims conquered?
They would be asked to leave.
And if they didn't leave their home, which they were living there before you conquered, what happens to them?
They would be asked to leave again.
And if they refuse?
Then that's
they can live.
So please don't call us extremists.
They can live.
No one calls you extremists, bro. I just want to understand why you're saying
the person saying you would kill idolaters in your state. You're the person saying you would kill idolaters in your state. We have a state. There are millions of Muslims. There are thousands and thousands of Christians. There are thousands and thousands of Jews, and they can all practice their faith. There are pagans who live in Israel, and they can practice their faith freely. In an Islamic state, you're saying they be killed.
Yes, Israel isn't. You talk about holy land. You don't do this holy land thing. There's nothing holy about what you guys are doing. First of all, you guys even having a Jewish state is against what your Tanakh teaches. Second of all, Israel is a secular state, bro. There's nothing holy or Judaic about what you guys are doing. You go down to Tel Aviv, you got the LGBTQ community doing all sorts of stuff. I'm sure that's against the scripture, Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, we're not killing innocent people. Your Tanakh tells you not to do that. Yeah, you're supposed to wait for your Messiah until you go and establish your state. But the Zionist movement has decided to pursue that for their own agenda. So there's nothing holy about what you guys are doing. You talk about the holy site underneath Al-Aqsa. You don't even respect the holy site. You lot are there bombing it every single day, but yet you want to, in the end, justify it by calling it holy, bro. Like,
let's go back to your thing. You said that the Tanakh forbids a Jewish state. Can you just show me where in the Tanakh it says that?
Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Where's my Dalil here? Yeah. So I have something here. It's called Kutubot 11AB.
That's not the Tanakh.
Oh, that's not the Tanakh.
All right, fine.
The Talmud.
Okay, that's Talmud, yeah. So you have certain prominent rabbis who say that you're not allowed to have a Jewish state until the Messiah comes.
But you said the Tanakh. You said the Tanakh, yeah?
Now you're changing your view.
Give me a second.
The reason I like doing this is if I can show that one thing, whether it's talking Hamas, hiding weapons in schools and houses and firing from civilian neighborhoods, if I can disprove you on that, I want to. If I can disprove your claim that the Tanakh denies a Jewish state, because I can actually go to the verse which you're going to quote, which the passage from the Talmud you're quoting actually references it. So if you read that Talmudic quote, it will tell you where to look in the Tanakh. And then you tell me, you interpret that verse, and you, Rabbi Zoubida, you tell me how that verse.
Jeremiah 27:22. They shall be taken to Babylonia, and they shall remain until the day that I recall them, said the Lord. So who is the Lord? You're talking about God here, yeah?
When was the Babylonian exile?
For you, with your what kind of insider knowledge do you have to assert that God hasn't? God, I mean, God. I think we all agree that God controls history. So
you tell me what is the original border.
Let's stick to one thing at a time. If God is in control of history, then and God said that in Jeremiah that he's going to send us to Babylon until the day that he calls us back, which, by the way, you're talking only about the Babylonian exile. So that's relevant to something that happened about 600 years BCE, and we've already returned from the Babylonian exile. So that promise in the Tanakh has actually already been fulfilled.
Okay, I'll read it.
Can I make a recommendation for the debate, Zoubida? Let's not go into Judaism, because with all due respect, not due respect, due respect, you're a little out of your depth.
As Muslims, we know what you guys are waiting for. Yeah, let's not play dumb. You lot are waiting
for
your
What are we
Messiah.
waiting for?
You're waiting for your Messiah to come, right?
Yeah, we're waiting.
We are waiting for Messiah.
In order for your Messiah to come, what needs to be established before he comes?
So it's not like that. So basically there are signs of who the Mashiach is. And one of those signs is that he will take the Jews back, which is what you're quoting. The Jews will return to Israel. Yeah?
You was about to say...
one of the signs of the Messiah is that he will build, if you go to the Mishneh Torah, where the book of Maimonides, the rabbi we were quoting before, he will... One of the signs is he will build the temple, the third temple. So there will be global peace. The Jews will know the Torah inside their heart. These are the signs that the Messiah has come. Yeah? But that's got nothing to do with what we're discussing.
Okay, no. Because what the case that I'm trying to make is what you guys are doing is not only driven by politics, but it's religious extremism. Yeah?
Perfect.
It is. What you guys are doing, you've got rabbis explicitly saying that kill the non-Jews, all in order to prepare for your Messiah. Right, because there's religious connotations. You said to me the other day about Al-Aqsa mosque, you said to me underneath it, is your holy site, which is where you want to build your third temple in order for your Messiah to come. So what you guys are doing is literally religious extremism. You are occupying lands in the name of religion, but yet it's such an irony when they sit there and talk about Islamic terrorism, when what you guys are doing is literal religious extremism. You can back up what you're doing through your religious scriptures.
It feels bad picking by your arguments there. So, like, basically, okay. So the early Zionists. We'll need 2 seconds. I'll just respond to that, and then you can jump in. All the early Zionists who founded the movement were completely atheists. Theodore Herzl, they didn't believe.
The one thing I want to kind of. It's one of my bugbears. Herzl is a figurehead, but actually, in terms of his ideas, they had very little influence on what happened on the ground, and in fact, he died in 1904.
Okay,
so
we go to any of the.
But something I want to point out, because I think this is important. If you look at all the main Zionist ideologues who actually had an influence on the ground, the socialist Zionists, people like Aleph Dalet Gordon, people like Echad Ha'am, people like Martin Buber, they all had classical Jewish education. They were very, very well knowledgeable in Jewish studies. The fact that they later abandoned that doesn't mean that they weren't well versed in Jewish texts and Jewish sources. And I'm not saying you were going to say that, but I think it's important.
Would you not say some of the actions are religiously motivated though, like trying to change holy life?
Really not. They're not. Zoubida, if we wanted to build a third temple, we'd build it. Literally, we'd build it.
So when the Messiah comes,
with the great respect, with the greatest respect, we are as a military force. We are the most powerful military force in the area. The reason we don't do that.
What? You're not the most. Hamas with nothing, with no army, make you mad. And you tell me you're the strongest army. Hamas makes you go mad.
Waleed, we crushed you every time you invaded us. Every time you invaded us, we crushed you. Every time we
don't try to build this narrative in the media. You're not the strongest army.
He's scared of Iran from his
you need to know who you really are. You know, this is what you're saying in the media. Israel is nothing. Hamas with handmade rockets makes you underground the 24. So Hamas showed the whole world that the narrative of Israel, the strongest army, is not real. Exactly like what you did, with our war in 1973. You said you built the biggest dam and no one can cross this dam ever. Never, no one will cross this from the Egyptian. And the Egyptian passed it in 6 hours. So and subhanallah with motor water as well.
And subhanallah, we came
what happened after that?
And we finished it in 6 hours. You're not the strongest army. That's my point. You're not the strongest army, and you need to know that. You live there because the Muslim people are peaceful. You live there because hundreds of millions around you, Muslim people, are so good to and live in you, live peacefully there.
And let's not argue with you 100%. The British and the American and the French aided you. So this credit
one at a time.
This credit that you're boasting about doesn't solely come from Israeli people. Remember, you guys were refugees who are being persecuted, and it was because of the European imperialists that they put you in this position, bro. To this day, Britain is still sending you weaponry, bro. Like, America also is helping you out. So let's not act like it's a solely independent thing. Because
and it's not working for them as well, Zoubida, even with all these billions, Hamas make them going mad. And these people themselves from the army. Forget this point. Yeah, forget this point.
We've educated you on Judaism. Now we're going to educate you on history. So in 1948, 5 Arab armies invaded Israel with the intention of destroying Israel.
No, don't say that. Okay, carry on. I will respond. Sorry. Sorry.
Okay, I'll bring some quotes of the Arab League, of Pasha, of various people telling us they're going to pave the roads from Cairo to Al-Quds with the skulls of Jews. We're going to drive the Jews into the sea. It was a war, a genocidal war with the intention of absolutely annihilating the fledgling Arab state, Jewish state. Israel repelled 5 Arab armies. To put into context how poorly armed the Israelis were, this is a collection of refugees who've survived the Holocaust and Arab massacres. They had 1 gun per 3 people. 1 gun per 3 people. They had no air force. The only 2 planes they had, they weren't allowed. Nobody would sell the Jews, the Jewish, the Zionist arms back in the day. So they had to get 2 old World War II planes through Czechoslovakia. The British were arming the Jordanian Legion. Literally, the history of all the Arab wars were in the 73 war, which is your favorite war, Waleed. You were armed by the Russians. We destroyed you. We crushed you. Same with the Syrians. We faced a million soldiers to our 375,000. We had 1,700 tanks compared to your nearly 3,000 tanks. You had superior everything, and we crushed you. You're happy that you built a bridge across a river. Mazel tov. Okay. Well done. Well done. We literally flanked the third all of your army. Sorry, okay. What was that, Zoubida? You all got a bit animated.
I will agree. I will respond to this point. Yeah, I will agree with you that England was selling Jordan weapons and they was selling also Egypt weapons. And in this time we had a king. And we kicked this king after that was 10 years. But in this time, this king bought a weapon deal from England. And England, they give us weapons. When you shoot, it doesn't shoot in front, it shoots you back. They sold us this. It was corrupted deal, and they sold us bad weapons. And America was helping Israel, and you did, and no one was expecting that. There is terrorist people gonna come and they take land, and they say it was us from thousands of years. In this time, no one expected it. It was something never happened in history that someone come. Let me finish, please. It wasn't expected from any country in the whole world that some extreme people go to one land and they say we claim it. It was for us from 2,000-3,000 years. Who was living there? What about the people who was living there, who protected this land, who saved this land, who entered the war for this land, and who makes this land in good environment? You can do agriculture and you can do trading. Who saved this land? What about them? You want to come and they take their land and they tell them you have no right. I was there from 2,000 years. No, you wasn't. What is that? What is that? And then that's why we lost this war, because no one expected it. But after that, what did we do to you? Yeah, we took that. You came to Sinai and you took it, and we took it back from you. I can send you a picture of we captured a lot of your Israeli soldiers sitting like that. And the captured, and we send this. They came. Let me finish. They came to us. They came to us with military clothes, and we send them back to Israel with their pajama. This is facts, and I can send you their picture with the pajama. You know, all the history can prove that your army nothing but a loser. That's why he attacks women and the children. No strong army in the whole world will attack will attack children and the kids. The only reason you attack kids and the children to put pressure in the world, to put pressure in Hamas. If you attack us, I'm gonna kill children. If you do this to us, that's what you're doing, and that's not. And you, all what you can call your army is a dirty army. That's why people are scared from it or leave in it, because dirty army. When you fight with it, he will run to kill children. That's why we avoid you, you know. But till it come to what you want, that you want to build the Aqsa mosque. If you do so, just when you try to take some more houses in Sheikh Jarrah, the whole world is in fire now, and we learn it how is the war now, and we're gonna carry on like that. So imagine if you take this Aqsa mosque, you tried it with one house, and the whole world is in fire, and you can't control it. And you telling me that you can take the Aqsa mosque like that and build your temple? Please speak some facts.
Waleed, the reason we don't take Al-Aqsa mosque is that we respect the diversity of religion. Jews are not allowed to pray at Haram al-Sharif, Masjid al-Aqsa, Qubbat al-Sakra, despite it being our holiest place in the world. Tens of thousands of Muslims can pray there, yeah? Masjid al-Aqsa is less holy to Muslims than it is to Jews. It's just a fact. The very name, Bayt al-Maqdis, where the word al-Quds come from, Qudsi, it comes from the fact that the Beit HaMikdash, the Jewish temple, stood there. It's our holiest site. Even though it's our holiest site, we have no desire to build a temple on there. Yes, we want a third temple. And to be honest, there's enough space on the plaza for one to sit there alongside Masjid al-Aqsa and Qubbat al-Sakra. But we're not building that. We're actually denying Jews the right to pray there and granting Muslims, 85,000 Muslims pray there on one day in Ramadan. Not one Jew prayed there on Yom Yerushalayim, which is an important day.
So why are you attacking during Ramadan, their holy month? If you know Muslims are fasting and this is their holy month, why was you guys attacking it?
Great question.
You have no respect.
If Masjid al-Aqsa is so important, and I'm going to say Palestinians, not Muslims, if it's so sacred to Palestinians, why are they rioting on there? Why are they firing fireworks at Jews who are praying and nearly burning Masjid al-Aqsa to the ground? Why are they screaming Allahu Akbar as Hamas fire rockets at Al-Quds, at Masjid al-Aqsa? As Hamas fire rockets, they're screaming. Why am I watching videos of Palestinians playing football at Masjid al-Aqsa? Could you imagine a Muslim playing football at the Kaaba? They'd be outraged.
No. Kids, what are you talking about? Aki, you can do that. Like, it's an area for kids to be kids. As long as you're not doing anything haram or forbidden, it's okay for kids to be kids. What are you talking about?
I'll actually concede that point. I agree. I agree with that. I think that's a fair point. What about rioting? What about rioting? What about nearly burning down the mosque?
Akib, sorry, didn't mean to quit. Akib, my main point is
this.
No,
you can't be you're Ashkenazi.
I'll answer your point, but why are the IDF and some Jewish extremists attacking Muslims during their holy month of Ramadan? Why is this?
Because they're throwing Molotov cocktails and fireworks and rocks at the Jews who are praying beneath them.
So now what you want to do is do a tit for tat. Let's go. If you want to do that, we can go all the way back. The fact is,
No, I'm literally talking about Ramadan. I'm talking about Ramadan.
Bro, if someone comes into your house, do you not expect? I wouldn't be shocked. I'll be shocked if you did not resist, bro. Like, you just do it. We can go around in circles.
They're resisting it, Masjid al-Aqsa.
Is because, again, the Israelis, the occupiers, have come and occupied these people's lands. Of course, there's going to be some resentment. It's the same if I scratch you in your face right now. You ain't going to come and give me a hug. You're going to resent me. So stop trying to, like, we're trying to do.
We would not give you a hug because we respect the fact that you're a religious Muslim woman and we presume that you don't touch men. That's why we would give you a hug. We wouldn't give you a hug because we can.
Obviously, hypothetically, if I wasn't a religious person, if a man, for instance, slapped you in the face, right? You wouldn't go and treat him with respect or be.
I think it depends on the circumstance, because, like, this is one of the teachings of our religion is to actually not to. For example, if you see this is a halakha in Judaism. If you see your enemy as donkey suffering under the weight, you're actually obliged to go over and help him unload the donkey.
So, subhanAllah, the Jews will go and help a donkey, but they will go and kill an innocent Palestinian child. So the
Zoubida, it doesn't matter what you believe. Let me come in, please, Joseph. Let me come in. It doesn't matter what you believe, Joseph, or what he believed. What is matter is what is the Israeli people believe. Well, you live here and you saying beautiful things. We all agree with that. And if this happens, sure, no one will have a problem. But the fact is, these people are extreme. They follow your religion, but you don't agree with them, but they are extreme in your religion. When ISIS started in our religion, we came and we condemned them. But when this happened, you back them. But when you live in here, why you don't go and live in Israel? Why you live in your religious mission and live in the chosen land? If it's really chosen land, why you prefer in other land?
Waleed, just can I quickly respond to a few of those points? For personal reasons, I can't at this very moment move to Israel. In the very near future, inshallah, I will be moving to Israel.
So I'm an Israeli citizen. There are three reasons in Jewish law why you're permitted to leave the land of Israel. One of them is to get married, and happily, that's the reason why I came to the UK. And very shortly, I will be going back to Israel with my wife. So that answers your question.
Okay.
And okay. Just to bring it back, because I think we can go. There's so many different points we can pick up on. So I think I just really want to focus on the real elephant in the room, which neither of you have addressed, because we've all got counter narratives. You will say that Jews attacked Muslims on Ramadan at Masjid Al-Aqsa. We will say you were throwing Molotov cocktails at us. We have a right to defend ourselves. And we can go round and round the houses with these debates. What I think is the real elephant in the room is actually the existence of Israel. So it's a question I asked before, and I'll ask you just a yes/no answer. It's just all I ask. Can you ever accept Israel as it is today, as a Jewish state? Let's ignore the West Bank and Gaza, just in the borders which the international community, the pre-67 lines, the 49 armistice lines.
I agree with that. I can accept that. I can accept 1967 borders and the Jerusalem under.
I say no, because again, the just based on the political power that the IDF hold over Palestinians. Okay, and I just want to read something here briefly, if you don't mind, and I'd like to show a 40-second video since you were able to show your stuff,
absolutely.
Right?
Do you have a share option in the?
Yeah, I've got that. I'm just going to read it first, and I'll share it afterwards. So I've done a bit of research about apartheid, right? Now, some people wouldn't like if it's going to be discussed, like people wouldn't use the word apartheid, but what's happening is very similar, so it might as well be an apartheid, right? And what constitutes an apartheid is crimes against humanity of persecution, also set out in the Rome Statute, the international and severe deprivation of fundamental rights on racial, ethnic, and other grounds grew out of the post-World War II trials and constitutes one of the most serious international crimes of the same gravity as apartheid. Now, we know this is happening in Palestine. Palestinians they're not given the same rights. Yeah, like, let me just finish. They're not given the same rights. They lack electricity, they lack clean water, they're being basically pushed out of their homes that they've owned. I mean, yesterday I saw in a post that one airstrike managed to wipe out a whole generation of family, the youngest being 4 and the oldest being 9. That's a whole generation wiped out. The state of Palestine is a state party to both the Rome Statute and the Apartheid Convention. In February 2021, the ICC ruled that it has jurisdiction over serious international crimes committed in the entirety of the OPT, including East Jerusalem, which would include the crimes against humanity of apartheid or persecution committed in that territory. In March 2021, the ICC Office of Prosecutor announced the opening of a formal investigation into the situation in Palestine. Let me just go quickly down here. And this is, I think this is Human Rights Watch organization. In a 10-year review published in May 25, Human Rights Organization Yesh Din found that some 85% of investigations in such cases, including violence, arson, damage to property, mutilation of trees and takeover of land, ended with no further action, and that the odds of a police complaint filed by a Palestinian resulting in the conviction of an Israeli civilian were a mere 1.9%. Given the futility of this effort, many Palestinians choose to forego filing a complaint altogether. So there's been many international organizations who have investigated the crimes of Israel, and they've come to conclusions that many human rights has been violated. International crime, you can laugh what you like, bro. War crimes have been violated. Why can't you understand that? Why we can just put it in layman's terms. Do you think it's okay for some random people to walk up in your house, kick you, your family out there and say, now this is mine? Would you class it as a violation?
Yes, I would.
What's the relevance of that to what we're discussing, though?
Okay, so let's just deal, because you really went through a lot of things, and so let's deal with the charge of apartheid. It's the easiest of charges to debunk. So if you want to talk, what I've learned in the many years I've been debating Israel-Palestine is what they accuse you of is usually what they're guilty of. So let's look at the reality. In Israel, the third largest political party, joint third, is an Arab party. You have Arabs who have sent Jewish prime ministers and presidents to jail. You have the highest performing religious group in Israel, are Christian Arabs. You have complete equality of services throughout Israel. Now, let's compare that to Jews in the Palestinian Authority. What apartheid do you think Jews under the Palestinian Authority face? Well, one, Article 6 of the Palestinian National Charter denies them citizenship. They're not allowed to be citizens. So it's beyond apartheid. It's ethnic cleansing. If an Arab, Zoubida, just listen, because you'll learn. And you need to learn desperately. Just hear me out, Zoubida, please. If a Jew sells his house to an Arab in Israel, do you know what happens? They exchange deeds and the Arab moves into his lovely new house. If an Arab sells his house to a Jew in the West Bank or Gaza, do you know what happens to him? He gets executed. That's apartheid. Apartheid is murdering people for selling their properties to someone of the wrong ethnicity. So where the charge of apartheid comes from is because Palestinians who are governed by the Palestinian National Authority are under a different jurisdiction to Israelis who live in that same region. So what you're effectively advocating for is you are saying that an Arab who's living in Ramallah should be judged by the same laws as a Jew or an Arab or anybody who's living in Tel Aviv. And they should be under the same jurisdiction. 2 seconds. Zoubida, I let you speak. Zoubida, I let you speak.
You're trying to change the definition.
If you were to advocate for that, you would be effectively advocating for what the settler movement is asking for, which is a one-state solution where Arabs and Jews are equal under Israeli law. If you were supporting the Palestinian cause of a two-state solution, you would be saying that the Palestinians should be under the Palestinian Authority. That's why they vote, whenever they have them in the odd 15 years, in the Palestinian elections. That's why they pay taxes to pay for the Palestinian services. That's why they get their healthcare provided by Palestinians and not Israelis. If you want to describe that as apartheid, you're advocating for the same solution as the settlers you detest. And that is the end of the Palestinian state.
Apartheid crimes against humanity would be as follows: inhuman acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial groups of persons.
We literally just pointed out there were Arabs in parliament.
Finish, please. Yeah. So again, as it stands now, the majority of people living in the whole of Palestine are Jews. Right, so this is a domination by one racial group over any other racial groups of person and systematically oppressing them. Now, some 500,000 Israelis are now living over the Green Line. More than 300,000 in 121 settlements and about 100 outposts, which control 42% of the land area of the West Bank. So even there, you're not even agreeing to a two-state solution. You're going up and beyond the two-state solution. Yeah, and you've already proven to do this, because I was having a discussion today. Back in 1967 or 1970 at that time, you guys had taken Israel and you decided to even go as further and expand into Egypt. You took parts of Jordan as well. So you just keep on expanding. So you're not about a two-state solution, bro. Because even within your area, you're still going out of those borders. So first
and foremost, thank you for making the point. Yeah, I just want to make one thing and then you can go, Alexander. Thank you for proving our point before, Zoubida, that we won the previous wars. It wasn't Egypt that beat Israel. It wasn't Jordan that beat Israel. Israel won those wars, which is why it acquired territory, which it then gave away for peace, which is why me and Waleed...
So why did you take tonight if you only wanted the Holy Land? Why are you going up and beyond? Why are you taking other territory for?
No, it's defensive. It's defensive. But Alexander, I'll let you respond.
What about Jordan? Yeah. What about certain parts of Lebanon? Why are you continue to try to expand your borders?
So because when people attack us, we defend ourselves.
So you admit you're trying to.
When Jordan in 1967 ignored the Israeli government, who said please don't attack us, but they foolishly listened to the to the Egyptian authorities who lied about the progress they were making on the way to Jerusalem. So when Jordan began shelling and attacking Israel from the West Bank, Israel sent its army to defend its people and conquered the area. And that's really why we're in the situation that we're in now. And the other thing is that the day after the 6-day war was over, the Israeli government offered to return all of the captured territories, with the exception of Eastern Jerusalem, in exchange for peace, and were turned down. They weren't turned down and said, well, we don't like what you're offering. They were turned down and said, we don't accept that you have a right to exist. We will never make peace with you, and we will never recognize you. So what we need to understand is, if you look in history, and this is where this personally, I'm not entirely opposed to a two-state solution, and the reason I say not entirely opposed is because I genuinely believe if the Palestinians wanted a two-state solution, there would already be one. They've been offered it on 6 separate occasions. On every occasion,
Why would they though? Why would they though?
Because there are two peoples in the region who have long-standing links to the land, and unless of course, you're welcome. If Palestinians, the Palestinian strategy up until now has been to say, look, you came after you may have been here long ago. Then they tried to deny that. But the Palestinian Authority says, you Jews don't belong here. Everything belongs to us, and we're going to fight you until you leave or give us control of the country. Now, obviously, Palestinians, they can keep banging their heads against the wall if they want to, and we'll keep winning wars. If they keep choosing wars, we're happy to keep winning them. But we actually want to live in peace.
There's no glory in killing children, my friend.
But the point is, nobody's saying there's glory in killing children. But we're happy to.
What are you fighting, bro? You've been fighting Hamas for so long to the point you're losing, to the point where you're targeting children. That's not a war, bro. Like, you're talking about winning wars. Hamas is still here. That's why you've resorted to killing children, my friend.
You lose them. You lose it. The fact is, Hamas makes you crazy, and you lose in the war. You lose it from Hamas.
The biggest problem.
Because we didn't wipe out Hamas in its entirety, because we don't follow the same morality, for example, of Jordan, who killed 70,000 Palestinians in the 1970s. Because we don't stand. It's not. That was during Black September, when Black September tried to take over Jordan. Maybe I've got the number wrong, but it was certainly tens of thousands of Palestinians who were killed by the Jordanian authorities when the PLO tried to take over Jordan in the 1970s. You can look.
Can I just share my
Can I finish this point? Then you can come in. Let me finish this point. So the point is, for the last 100 years, Palestinians have had, or certainly the Palestinian leadership, have had the attitude of, everything belongs to us and we're going to fight you. Now, they've taken that choice and they've lost every time. So you asked before, why should Palestinians accept the state of Israel? The reason Palestinians should accept the state of Israel is because we have rights to be here. We've acknowledged, when we've accepted partition plans, when Jewish governments and the state of Israel and the Jewish Agency have accepted partition plans, what they've said is, look, we acknowledge that we are not the only people that live in this land. And we understand that we have our own national expression and you have your own national expression. And it's not really for us to fully express our national existence. We need to live separately for some of us. Some people, for example, we have it. No, hold on. Can I finish the point?
It has been done.
Can I finish the point? So the point is that the reason why Palestinians should accept a two-state solution is because they can, through that, they can gain the first ever independent Palestinian state in the whole of history. So they can have their national expression, just as long as they're willing to accept that it's alongside the Jewish people who also have rights in the land. Now, we've accepted that. We've made offers of partition. We've accepted international offers of partition. So we've acknowledged that the Palestinians have rights, Jewish governments, and the Arab leaders. So, for example, in 1915, when there was the Paris Peace Conference, when these decisions were being made about what to do with the Turkish lands after World War I, the Palestinian leadership were invited to the Paris Peace Conference to send a delegation to put their views across of what should happen to the area. They refused to send anyone. So this is the thing, like you can you can say that you don't agree in principle, but what you can't say is, I don't agree you have a right to be here. I'm going to attack you, and then say to the Jews, well, why are you defending yourselves? How terrible is that? You can't have it. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can have peace tomorrow. So
you made a lot of points there, yeah. Like I said, historically, if you're going to go into Islamic history, there's been many times where Jews have lived under the protection, and Christians under the protections of Muslims. You know, through lineage, we are technically cousins. Yeah, I've even got Jewish DNA in my blood. So my main thing is, I'm not anti-Jews. I'm not against Jews. Yeah, Jews, Muslims, Christians in that region have lived side by side, for the most part, peace. But what has happened now, for me, I see it as a perfect case of Western imperialism happening. I see it as a colonization. You can come and live in the land in peace, but not take it over, not oppress the people that have already been there. And that's what you guys are doing. It's like, you're not coming there in peace. Like I said, after the Holocaust, the Arabs came in and they welcomed you in. They gave you their homes. They gave you a safe haven. Yeah, and what you guys done has thrown it back in the face. You guys, and I don't want to say this in a disrespectful manner, bro, but actually, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to go down that route, yeah? Because, you know, I know you guys are very sensitive, yeah? So I've got to be very careful what I say. But the main point is this. Your people have been persecuted, yeah? You've been oppressed. And I just find it very ironic when you're doing the same thing to other people. Like, this whole denial thing that you're coming with, you're obviously watching one side of what's happening. I'm speaking to people in Palestine, bro. I'm seeing footages of children that cannot even close their eyes because they're so shocked from trauma. And I just want to play this 40-second video, if you don't mind, Joseph, so that you can, you know, tell us what you think about this.
They're not, all they want is their country.
Can you hear
back.
it? Sorry, can you hear it?
Yeah.
You can hear it, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
They're not, all they want is their country back.
Mute yourself, Zoubida.
Well, that's not gonna happen, I'm sorry.
So you're telling me that children, innocent children, deserve to die?
Yes, because they're, in the future, are terrorists and hateful towards Israel.
Okay, yeah.
So I'd rather stop them living now before they grow and have a weapon. It's simpler.
Oh, okay. So it's killing kids is like, so if you had the choice, you would go into hospitals where kids are born and kill them.
Everyone, till the last, all Gaza needs to be flat.
Okay, sorry, I muted everyone because we had echo. Sorry, Alexander, you were going to say something. You put your hand up like we're in school. I've muted you, so I need to unmute everyone.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say
this last point, yeah, these are the same sentiments that are coming out of what I said to you about the King Torah book, where you had an extreme sect who do think like this, my friend. And again, some of these people are IDF soldiers. They're in positions of power, so they can exercise that thought because they're the ones with the guns. They're the ones with the weaponry.
So what I'd say is that you found some one random guy on the internet who says things that obviously are reprehensible and deserve. Yeah, no, I'm sure there are other examples because Israel's like every other country has some people who aren't very nice. Just like I'm sure, you know, if we
don't even need to go far. Zoubida, a pro-Palestinian convoy came through Golders Green last week saying they were going to rape my daughter and rape my mother because they were Jewish. So we don't even need to go to Palestine. We can literally go to the UK. You get extremists in every society. First, I don't know who that guy is. He might not even be Jewish. Like, who knows who he is? It's some random thing from the internet. What I would bring it back to. Sorry.
Well, this is continuation of my point.
We don't agree with that. You agree with what Israel is doing.
Paying students, uni students, to actually censor stuff like this and counter stuff like this. Israel right now is actually sending out propaganda to counter some of these things. So we are the alternative media because they're trying to censor stuff like this.
Who's trying to censor?
Can I just come back to the point?
What Netanyahu's doing now, he's paying uni students to go and defend Israel on social media.
Who's paying uni students?
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu isn't paying uni students. Are you insane?
Oh my God, bro.
Netanyahu told his bride.
I have contact. I'm in close contact with the Israeli government. I can assure you that Benjamin Netanyahu isn't paying uni students to go and promote Israel. This is the problem with the anti-Israel movement. They believe absolutely everything that they're told. They never question. Zoubida, when have you ever, in the course of this conversation, here's just a simple test. In the course of this conversation, we've presented you with numerous facts you'd never heard before. I imagine that not one of those facts you actually reconsidered your position. You thought, maybe I'm learning something that I haven't been exposed to. What you do is you double down every time. So anything that is negative about Israel, you believe, and anything that is positive about Israel, you dismiss. I would say one thing. I was actually very impressed with Waleed earlier when he said that he could recognize an Israeli state. And that really did surprise me, because I didn't expect you to say that, Waleed. And that's what we believe in Arab countries.
I'm talking... Okay. Listen, I'm talking with the mentality in the Arab, even with the Palestinian, I'm talking from fact. We have fact now that you, like a disease, came there and you collected all the Zionists from around the world, all the extreme, and you there claiming it, and they say that all the Israeli people was there from thousands of years. When I'm from Egypt, and the history written in our walls in Egypt. And it will never lie. Everything is documented. I never found anything talks about the Jews who's living in Palestine written in our walls in Egypt, and even in any tomb toilet. I never saw that written in our walls. But the thing is, you come in here and trying to claim all this stuff. It's wrong. It was never there.
Okay, can I just say one quick thing here, just to back up my point? Yeah, USA Today News, Jerusalem AP, Israel is looking to hire university students to post pro-Israel messages on social media networks without needing to identify themselves, as government-linked official says Wednesday. The Israeli Prime Minister office said in a statement that students on Israeli university campuses would receive full or partial scholarships to combat anti-Semitism and calls to boycott Israel online. Because right now, I'll be honest with you, social media, the news, the awareness that's being spread, you lot can't hide from this one. I don't know if you use TikTok or all these other mainstream social medias, but mashallah, there's a lot of people out there exposing the crimes that are happening there on the ground, alternative media. And this is the lengths that you guys are willing to go to censor it.
Zoubida, so the first thing is, the reason there is so much animosity towards Israel is because it's a Jewish state. We've known anti-Semitism in every single generation. The entire world has been attacked against us at times, almost. So you look at Nazi Germany, just because there were a lot of Nazis that wanted a genocide. 2 minutes, Waleed. Just because a lot of Nazis wanted to genocide the Jews, and there were a lot of Nazis that were very critical of the Jewish people, it didn't make the Nazis right. Yeah. So you may have the numbers, and you do have the numbers. There are 1.7 billion Muslims. Yeah. The majority of whom do not like Israel. There are only a few million Jews in the entire world. Things are like 15 million now. It's like we're tiny, tiny, tiny people. Yeah. So of course there's going to be more hatred towards us. Well done. You're bigger.
Bro, you guys are very well successful in America. Look what you're doing in America, bro. You have like whole areas where the Jews live, and they basically run that. You know, you've got areas
of Jews run America.
Areas, there's certain areas.
Which areas the Jews run?
Listen, in America, you've got like the black community, you've got the Mexican community, and you have whole pockets of Jewish communities in America who are very well established. Same here in the UK. I used to live near Stamford Hill, bro. So let's not act like when you speak about persecution outside of Israel, that is the 100% the case, because some Jews are doing very well outside of Israel.
I'm not saying
that's not my argument. I want to add to this point.
Persecution, anti-Semitism, bro. Like,
no, I said 1.7 billion Muslims in the world. So if you want to talk about Muslim countries where Jews are doing well, be my guest.
Yeah,
tell me which Muslim country are Jews doing well in.
Listen, you call us anti-Semitic, all the world, the Arab is anti-Semitic. The Arab are Semitic. I am Semitic. Zoubida Semitic. You are not Semitic. The people in Israel came from Europe. They're not Semitic people. Right. You who are anti-Semitic, you created this word to defend the word of Israel.
If the word triggers
wait, let me finish. Wait, let me finish. I'm Semitic more than you, more than this man. The Semitic people doesn't look like him. The people of Israelite, he doesn't look like him. We are Arab, we Semitic. How come? Listen. You can call people in Europe anti-Semitic, yeah, but you cannot call the Arab anti-Semitic. Okay. You cannot call me anti-Semitic. We call them our cousins.
Can I take this on?
If the word triggers you, let's just call it Jew hate. If the word triggers you, let's just call it Jew hate.
I want to. I would.
No,
We
don't hate Jew. We don't hate Jew. I love Jew. Listen.
Why is anti-Semitism only referred to Jews when the term anti?
So can I ask you that question?
To me, but how come you've claimed it?
So we haven't claimed it. It was invented by a 19th century German Jew hater who wanted to make Jew hatred sound more scientific, because at the time anything related to science, claiming that something was scientific, gave an idea. Can I use it? No, hold on. We use it because historically that word, now first of all, like let's come back to the beginning. So the Semitic is a group of is a language group. It's a term in linguistics. It refers to various languages, including Maltese, Amharic, Arabic, Syriac language as well, Aramaic. Lots of different languages are Semitic languages. There are also the people that speak these are Semitic peoples. Okay, so that's
why you anti-Semitic? Why you anti-Semitic? You was proudly now. You was proudly talking about the women's war in Jordan, Palestine, and Egypt. Why you anti-Semitic towards these people?
Waleed, let me finish, and so the actual word anti-Semitism was coined in Germany in the 19th century by, as I said, a German person. He didn't like Jews very much, and he wanted to make his Jew hatred. He was basically appealing to science to make his Jew hatred, to add a sense of authority to his hatred of Jews. So he coined this term anti-Semitismus. That's the German word that he used, and that was used later to refer to a specific type of racism.
So you're using the term that a Nazi coined. Are you saying that basically the origins of your plight comes from a Nazi?
So I'm saying, first of all, that he was not a Nazi. There are anti-Semites. There are people that, there are people who hate Jews who are not Nazis.
Who is that?
Well, throughout history, people before Nazis that didn't like Jews, and this guy was before the Nazis. And I said it's 19th century. So let's be clear. I mean, this is the thing. We're talking about Semites. We can get bogged down in semantics as well. So if you really want to, but the point is that this term was coined specifically about Jewish people in Europe.
What Semitic language did you speak, please, sir?
So
because I know so many Jewish people don't speak any Semitic languages; they only speak English.
We speak Hebrew.
What Semitic language?
We speak Hebrew. Jews throughout history, you might not know this, Waleed, but Jews, just as Arabs and I assume wider Muslims. You'll correct me if I'm wrong here, but just as Arabs and the wider Muslim community, when they study the Quran, I presume that they study that in Arabic. So when Jews, all throughout history, when Jews have studied the Jewish historical religious texts like the Tanakh, the discussion of that has been in Hebrew, and books throughout Jewish history. When rabbis were writing books, they wrote them in Hebrew.
At the end of the day, no one can use this word opposite us or opposite the Arab. We are Semitic more than the Israelite people who is there who came from Europe, because it's a fact, and we all know there is people coming from America and claiming nationality.
Can we not turn this into a semantic debate? Just let's deal with your ginger comment. You said that. So this is my uncle, yeah. He's actually Muslim, but he's my uncle. Is he a Semite?
MashaAllah.
He's a convert.
No, is he a Semite? Is he a Semite?
We don't go lineage, my friend.
No,
no.
Can I ask? Is he Semitic? Is he a Semitic person? This is my uncle. He looks the same as me, yeah. But he's a different religion. Is he Semitic?
It is a comfort to us. That's it.
No, but forget. Okay, I lie. He's not actually. He's actually Waleed. He's actually really a rabbi. I made up the Muslim part. He's a rabbi. He looks like me.
Okay, he's a convert. If he changes, he's a convert. If not, no.
He's a convert to Judaism, yeah, because you can't.
Waleed,
can I just make my point, please?
No, because okay, go on.
No, this guy here is actually no relation to me. This person you're looking at over here is a man called Muhammad al-Yaqubi, Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi. Okay. He descends from Muhammad.
Yes, I know.
He descends, and look at him. Your arguments of somebody looking European are stupid. Because
no.
Waleed, let me finish. Waleed, I didn't interrupt you.
Okay.
Ahad
I will
Tamimi.
respond after you.
Yeah, Ahad Tamimi, Muhammad al-Yaqubi, the Arab world is full of people with red hair, is full of people with light skin. So the argument, looking at Alexander and saying you don't look Semitic is a stupid argument when you accept that this dude, well, maybe you don't, but many Muslims accept that this dude descends from Muhammad.
Okay,
one other thing, Waleed. One other thing is you might not be aware of this, but in Jewish sources going back certainly thousands, at least 2,000 years, it's said that the original 12 tribes had various different eye colors, hair colors, different shades of skin.
I'm not saying
color.
that based
so for example, the different tribes. So we have always looking at us and saying, "Oh, because you've got ginger hair or you've got blue eyes, you can't be Semitic." Well, our sources, which predate Islam, say that we have always had these different features.
Okay,
so it's really just an ignorant argument.
Okay. Let me respond to come with my facts. Yeah, all what you're saying is talk. I'm not saying what I'm saying based on how they look. I'm saying based on facts that a lot of Polish people was running away from Poland was running away from Germany, and these people are German, are Italian, are Polish, and they came to Israel. That based on this fact that I found in it, not based on how they look, based on people like people living this day and an age, and moving from America, moving like Joseph can kill him and get the Israeli passport tomorrow. Does it? He's big Semite? No.
So
no,
I
really
want to respond to this. I really want to respond to this because it's potentially an area where we can agree on something. Potentially, if we actually listen. So the Jews that came from Poland, and let's take me out of the equation because I have mixed ancestry. I can't escape the fact that I'm part Irish, part Jewish, no more than someone who has different. That's just my ancestry. I can't deny that. I have Jewish ancestry, and it goes all the way back to Israel. But ignore me, remove me from the equation. Let's deal with the overwhelming majority of Jews who have high percentage Jewish-only DNA, because most Jews only marry within Jewish communities. They don't marry out. It's why there's been so many genetic studies on the Jewish people. So let's take a Polish Jew, a German Jew, let's take an Iraqi Jew, let's take a Ukrainian Jew. Jews from all over the world. They all, in all the DNA studies, the overwhelming majority trace their DNA back to Israel. And they left a long time ago. They left over 2,000 years ago for the majority of these Jews. So the Polish Jews came to be in Poland. They weren't Poles that converted to Judaism. Judaism isn't a religion like Islam. Judaism isn't a religion like Christianity. We're an ethno-religion, to put it in a box which it doesn't really fit in, but we are a people, and it's very hard to convert to Judaism. We don't go out and recruit people. So the majority of Jews trace their lineage all the way back to Israel. Now, I'm not going to pretend that along the way there haven't been converts that have come into the community, which is why when you look at different communities, they look slight, although they share similar DNA, you will see differences. So an Iraqi Jew typically looks different to a Ukrainian Jew, even though they share DNA. But my question to you, Waleed, is can you accept, and Zoubida as well, can you accept that most of the Jews in the world descend from a people that lived in Israel, although many of them lived away from Israel for a long time?
No.
I don't know. Allah alam. Like from what I understand.
Listen. Yeah, no. The majority of them, they came in the time. All the sons of Israel. When Yusuf ruled, they came to Egypt. When Yusuf ruled Egypt, he invited all his family, all the sons of Israel. They came to Egypt, and they stayed there till Musa came. Yeah, and Musa started from Egypt, and all the first Jewish people who believed with him, even the Pharaoh magician, all of them was Egyptian. So not only his tribe, there is the first Jewish people was also Egyptian. My color and not your color or anything. So I don't agree with what you're saying. And you saying they traced their DNA back to Israel. Where was Israel in this time? What border was it this time? What country? There was no Israel in this time.
That we
there was no country called Israel.
There was. It was called Am Yisrael.
No. Israel is a tribe, and you trying to Israel is the old tribe, but you trying to say it's all the city. There is difference between all the tribe and all the country. Listen. There was no Israel. And when you trace DNA, you need to tell me where was the first Jew and where they found his body and which country he was living. You say in Israel there was no Israel country in this time. It was all
so
the.
Where the first Jew is buried in Hebron.
I just want to ask a quick question. Just a quick.
The land of Canaan are big. The land of Canaan are big.
Waleed, give me a second. I just want to ask.
Where is it? From which Buddha? Tell me from the east was there. It was. Yes, yeah.
Let me just say one thing, yeah. I'm gonna change it a little bit, yeah, because something just come to my mind, yeah. Since like I heard you mention anti-Semitism before, yeah. So I just want to ask you, Joseph, if somebody said that Judaism is not compatible with the West, would you class that as anti-Semitic?
I think it's a good question and would depend on the context. So I think I think Judaism is compatible with the West because there are many Jews that live and practice their faith in the West. I think you could argue, and an academic could argue in an academic context, that there are certain practices and beliefs that maybe are in conflict with liberal values. So, for instance, Zoubida, let me finish. You asked me a question. For instance, the institution of slavery is, although there are very fierce restrictions on it within a Jewish context, it still is legal within a Torah framework as it is within Islam. I would say that is in conflict with the West or Western values. And I would say that if someone were to point that out, that wouldn't be anti-Semitic. But if someone were to say that Jews practicing Judaism as they do today in a modern context, if they were say that was in conflict with the West, then I would say that maybe that is anti-Semitic. So I think context is everything to give you an honest answer.
Okay.
I think can I add one thing?
Go ahead, sorry.
Just to say that a large corpus of Jewish law is relevant only in the land of Israel. So
if somebody pulled out the Torah and said, you know, this is one of the most hateful books to exist, would you class that as anti-Semitic?
So if you're going to say if people do that with the Quran, to say it's the most hateful book in the world, are they Islamophobic? I would say yes, they are. That is anti-Muslim bigotry. All the Muslims I know that do incredibly kind deeds, base those deeds on... Can I finish my point? All the Muslims I know that give lots of sadaqah, that give the zakat, that give charity, that look after people, they do that based on their interpretation of Islam, based on their reading of the Quran. So I would say if someone were to say that it's a hateful book, I'd say that that would be prejudiced. If I were to say that people can interpret, if someone were to say that people can interpret the Quran in a different way and use it as the basis for evil, like Daesh, like ISIS, I would say that's a true statement as well. And I think you can take most of the Abrahamic faiths and people can interpret them for good or for bad. So, yeah, I think the context of what you're getting at is important.
Holding the Quran, and this is the most hateful book. And so why do you then... well, let me ask you, do you support Tommy Robinson? Because I've heard you don't support him.
No.
Okay, well, you had a guy on here before when you were debating Mark Collette, and he was a quite proud Tommy Robinson supporter, considering he's also a Jew. So I just find it very like a... You know, I'm sure you said before that you support Tommy Robinson.
No, and on that debate, I said explicitly that I didn't support Tommy Robinson and that I was a liberal. I've never, ever supported Tommy Robinson. In fact, his cousin told me to F off back to Israel because I wouldn't shake his hand.
Oh, okay.
So it's not relevant.
Do you think that a lot of like Israelis are supporting Tommy Robinson? Because you do
They're
see
not. The majority of Israelis have never heard of Tommy Robinson. The majority of Israelis have never heard of Tommy Robinson. The overwhelming majority of... Why would they have heard of a guy from Luton who runs football firms? They thousands of miles from them. Israelis think nothing of Tommy Robinson. Yeah. Yes, he may have some supporters in Israel. I wouldn't doubt that. You watched a debate with me hosting an Israeli who's from the UK who supports Tommy Robinson. There are definitely Jews that support him. There are definitely Israelis, but they are such a minority of a minority of a minority. It's definitely not worth a conversation. Most Israelis have no idea who Tommy Robinson is because they speak a different language. They don't speak English, they speak Hebrew. Why would they know about some football casual from Luton? It's like... I
was just asking because I do see he does have quite a lot of Israeli funding, a bit of like connection. You know, you see the flags waving around. I just thought it's a bit strange to me why.
So some right-wing people, like, as this is my understanding, I might be wrong, but as I understand it, some anti-Muslim bigots, Islamophobes, essentially they wave the Israeli flag because they think they're winding up Muslims, and that's all there is to it. You know, it's not because they're supporters of Israel. If Israel was not involved in a conflict with Muslims and they saw no advantage to sort of poking Muslims, then they would be like I presume most of the rest of the far right who don't really have very much time for Jews at all.
Okay, fair enough. I
think one of the things that happens to Jewish people is we get used as pawns by other people. So we are brought into other people's conflicts, and we are used as tokens to either support or to attack. Truthfully, most Jews have no idea who Tommy Robinson is. The ones in the UK obviously know who he is, but outside of the UK, most Jews live outside the UK. There's a tiny community here, but we're indifferent. This isn't an Islam Judaism thing. I have an issue with the radicals like Hamas, like Daesh, who share nearly identical ideology. I don't have it like Hezbollah. I don't have an issue with Islam. I don't have an issue with Muslims. Some of my closest friends, I have family that are Muslim. I have no issue with Islam. In fact, I've dedicated decades of my life to building bridges between Jews and Muslims. That's not what this is about. This is about Israel-Palestine, and this is about the fact that Jews are not going anywhere. You described us, Waleed, as a disease that isn't going away. We don't see it that way. We don't see ourselves as a disease. I think it's quite inflammatory language. It's not the language of peace. But you're right, we're not going away. And the Arab world is realizing that. If we have crushed you in every single military conflict, and every conflict to come, we will continue to, not because we are superior, but because we have no other choice. Because if we lose, that's game over. We have nowhere else to go. We're not colonizers. We're not like the British. It's not like we can pack up and go back to England. We have nowhere else to go, so we will survive.
Okay, at least learn from the British.
Attack on us.
At least learn from the British. They ruled all over the whole world for 150 years, and then finished. Israel just 72 years. It's nothing. You make the century deal, and the Arab world and what's happening now showed you that this deal is nothing. We broke all your dreams. We broke all your hopes. You sided with some Arab leader and thought you can make a century deal and they're gonna be happy, peaceful, and you can do anything to the Palestinian. And once you try to take one house, we showed you that all your dream is done. All of this. Even the listen, let me finish. Even the Arab leader at one point will not be able to control their people. You see the people now protesting with thousands in all the borders. You know, one day a lot of million gonna run from everywhere. You know, and in this time, even our leader will not be able to control us. And then they're gonna take over, as you're gonna take it over and free it because this is our right to defend our holy places. To defend the kids who is dying every day. You and your friend sitting with cold blood talking about the people who died, but these people are alive. They had big life to live and so many dreams to do. And you're talking about with cold blood, families dead, and we just saying it words, but it was souls running and playing and games, going to schools. All the souls disappeared. Because you want to take more houses, you want to scare Hamas, you want to sit like that and they say you're arrogant. Arrogant to what? Arrogant to killing children. You showing off with what? Saying strong army and we will do that again. Do it again, no problem. We are willing to take more. We are willing to for a lot of people to die from us. That's you know. The Aqsa Mosque is mentioned in our Quran. It will never.
It's not mentioned even once in your Quran.
Let me finish. You said what you want, and you showed off with your army. So let me finish. France stayed in Algeria for nearly 150 years. England stayed in Egypt for 82 years. And England was so strong. Egypt was so weak, and we kicked them out at the end. You know, so don't think that because you stayed there 72 years, you won some wars. England won more than anyone, and at the end they lost their empire. So you might lose it anyway. And because you're filling people of hate, now the world society are opposite you. Now all over the world they protesting. Now they trying to ask the UN to put punishment in you. The case is changed. It's not like how it is before. We are well-educated generation who know what's happened in the past, and we studying so good. Thank you for your media, which you try to corrupt us with it, and they share a lot of all the born industry are funded by the Jew, and this is fact. Everyone know. Why are you doing that to corrupt us? But
Waleed, why are you looking at porn?
Let me finish.
Why are you looking at porn? You're a Muslim. You're a good Muslim boy. Why are you looking at
good
porn?
Muslim, yeah, I'm good Muslim boy, alhamdulillah. And all what I wish is safety for my Muslim brother and sister who's in Palestine. If you wanted to live there, you Israel is there. But don't kill more people. Stop killing more people. Stop putting pressure on us. Stop making us see our women are getting raped. We're not gonna be happy to see this happen to the British or to the German or even to the Israeli people. We condemn the ISIS. We protested opposite ISIS when they attack school. When something happened from Muslim terrorist attack, you find the whole Muslim community coming online and to condemn it, and they say that's wrong, and we burn them for that. Not like you here sitting and laughing on our people when they die. Sure, I am mad. Sure, I want safety for my people. What's wrong with that? These people live deserve for years.
Waleed, you've gone on a little bit there, so we respectfully listened. And the one thing I'm taking from this is your mentality is the reason why millions of Muslims have been slaughtered in recent years. The reason why the Arab world is in arms, is in flames, and not prospering like China, like Europe, is because of people with your mentality. You said you're well educated. I listened to you. I listened to you. You speak continuously violence. Your entire language is, we will crush you, we will destroy you. What happened is we beat the British, we beat the French, and we will beat Israel. You've only been here for 72 years. We will beat. Your entire language, your entire outlook is one of violence and aggression. Now I'm going to propose something, and then you can go. Imagine this. Imagine in 1948, when Israel declared independence, if the Palestinians also declared independence. Listen, Waleed, listen. Waleed, I'll mute you if you don't listen. I listen to you. I listen patiently. You ranted for a long time, and I respectfully listened. Imagine in 1948, if instead of invading Israel, instead of multiple Arab armies saying they were going to destroy the Jews and destroy the Jewish state, instead they'd said, actually, we can live alongside a Jewish state. And they, instead of waging war in which tens of thousands of their people have died over the years and continue to die in every war, imagine in 1948 they said, actually, let's just declare Palestine. They would have, a much bigger state than they could possibly have today, because the partition plan was much bigger. There wouldn't be one Palestinian refugee. You would have, look at Israel. Israel is one of the most accomplished economies in the world. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny state. Yet it's responsible for more innovation. It's rated the most innovative. Zoubida, I listen to you. Zoubida, everyone can have a turn. Israel is the most innovative nation in the world. It spends 5% of its GDP on research and development. The Palestinians spend 3% of their GDP on the salaries of terrorists. The more Jews you kill, the higher the salary you get. Yeah. So imagine a world in 1948 where the Palestinians recognized Israel and declared a Palestinian state. We wouldn't have one conflict. There wouldn't be one.
Palestine was there. What are you talking about?
Instead, we've had war after war, which you have repeatedly lost. And it's the same in Syria. It's the same in Lebanon. It's the same in Jordan. It's the same in Egypt. It's the same in Iraq. It's the same in Afghanistan. It's the same in Yemen. Because of your backwards, aggressive mentality, there is conflict everywhere. You said you're educated. Educate yourself in the ways of peace, in the language of peace. I'm sitting here saying, I am your cousin. I will make peace with you. I will live alongside with you. But you have to drop the genocidal aggression. You have to accept that we're not going anywhere. You have to stop calling us a disease. You have to stop
That's why I'm asking you. Please do it. Please do it. Live next to me and stop the genocide. Stop killing the whole lineage. Stop killing the whole family. Stop attacking the whole
genocide.
building. You know, that's what you're doing.
The population grows year on year. The Palestinian population keeps on growing.
Waleed, I have a question for you, Waleed. In 1951, Palestinians tried to establish a state in Gaza, and it was crushed by the Egyptian authorities there. Do you think that was a mistake, or was that the right thing to do?
It wasn't the Palestinian government. Say, if you really go to it, it wasn't the Palestinian government. It was something like Hamas who wanna start, and they took over Egypt, and they took over Gaza, and they start a new nation which is gonna leave for you Israel and all Palestine, and they move all the Palestinian to Sinai and they start. And we will never give you this chance. We will never give Sinai to anybody, and we will free Palestine, which was existed before you, coming from Europe after the Holocaust. The Holocaust is proven everything. If the Holocaust didn't happen, you will not be running away from Europe and then come to our Arab land and then invite all the extremist Jews around the whole world to come and they give them weapons and then start to kill. If you really the best economic in the world, why are you taking donations from America and Germany every single year, billions of dollars going to you? It's not because you are clever or something. That's billions of dollars coming to you when you sit in, just because you claim the Holocaust.
You said that you want peace.
Waleed, can I answer that?
Nations, sorry, let me just say one thing quickly, yeah?
Okay, go on.
When the Arab nations normalize relations with you, like UAE, Morocco, to be honest, the Muslim world was disgraced at this, and they've proven why they're disgraced. Because after your so-called peace relations with the Arab world, where you can come in as tourists, you then went on trying to take over Sheikh Jarrah and continue to disrespect us during Ramadan. So even when peace is offered to you by so-called Muslim nations, you go and violate it again and again. With all due respect, like even in the scriptures, bro, like we know what's going on. Like the scriptures tell us that you people were accursed people, that you do have arrogant ways. So until you come back to the true religion and come back to God and righteousness, then there will never be peace, because the way that you guys are acting is not in a way of righteousness. It's not in a way of Musa alayhi salam. Again, and the fact that you've not admitted to anything during the show, every time you bring you an accusation, what about Hamas? What about this?
We want to be peace. They don't want. We as a Muslim, we want the peace. But them, by killing, they don't want the peace.
Can I just finish though? Waleed, let me just finish, please. The last 10 years, Muslims are always told to condemn. Do you condemn ISIS? Of course we do. Do you condemn Al-Qaeda? Of course we do. All we've done is condemn and condemn and condemn. But when it's flipped on your side, there's no condemnation whatsoever. Go and look at it.
You can answer that. Well, Alexander, I just want to point out one thing. Throughout this conversation, it's been framed as Israel, Palestine. That's been the framing of the conversation. You've consistently said that Jews are cursed people, that we're a disease, that we control the world, that we control education, that we control the media.
I'm talking about the Israelites. I'm talking about the Zionists. Don't put words in my mouth. Every Israeli is a disease in my eyes. Yeah.
Where does
anyone
it say in the
Quran?
Where does it say in the Quran? Which ayah in the Quran says that Zionists are a cursed people?
It says it in your scriptures, bro.
It doesn't say that. It does not say that, Zoubida, and you're a liar. It says nowhere about Zionists. Does not say the Israelites in Genesis are cursed and they'll be scattered all over the world? Does it not say that? So then you're talking about Jews then, not Zionists. So that's what I'm saying.
Do you agree with that passage?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you're an anti-Semitic. I'm saying you are anti-Semitic.
She is the Arab. How come she's the Arab? She's the Arab.
Well, if it upsets you so much, she hates Jews.
All right, that's fine.
No. Listen. We were protesting shoulder to shoulder next to Jew, and we respected and appreciated they standing next to us in free Palestine.
So why is she saying? Why is she saying her scripture says that we're cursed?
We will die protecting this Israel Jew.
The scripture said you are cursed. The scripture says you are cursed.
Exactly. That is Jew hate.
So do you believe in the scripture?
Not the Quran.
No, not in the
No, I'm talking
Quran.
about
No.
the Bible. The Bible says it in Genesis that the Israelites will be a cursed people and they will be scattered all over the place. Do you agree with
No,
that?
it's not in Genesis. It's not in Genesis. It doesn't say
I'm
that
sure
we'll be
it's in
cursed.
Genesis.
You're thinking of passages. It's called the Tochacha. It's a passage in the book of Devarim, and it doesn't say exactly that. It says that it does say we'll be scattered. It doesn't say we're cursed. It says we will be a byword for
Listen, sir,
persecution.
we're not
So
Jew, but we heard
Waleed,
it from
do you
Jews
guys
that
agree?
you are
Hold on, Waleed.
cursed
Give me
and
one
you lost
second,
your
Waleed.
land.
Give me a second. Do you not guys not agree throughout your history when you spoke about Moses? Did you guys you guys were given Musa alayhi salam, a prophet? What did you do with that prophet? Did you obey him?
We followed him out of Egypt, and then
Yeah, what did you do afterwards?
we walked through the Red Sea.
Yeah, you decided to worship a cow. So Allah chose you. God the Almighty chose you as a chosen people, because that's what you call yourself. You even claim supremacy over other people. We are the chosen people. This is what you guys go on about all the time. You were given a prophet, you disobeyed that prophet, and you decided to worship a cow. And then
can I jump in here, Zoubida, please?
I'm gonna mute everyone because we're going down a path I don't want this to go down. My only point I was pointing about was that you're talking about Jews, you're not talking about Zionists. And all I'm saying is the mask has dropped. I don't want this to be a theological debate. I really don't want this to be about Judaism, Islam. I want this to be about Israel, Palestine, because we're not a religious channel. I'm happy to go on your channels, Zoubida, and we can debate Judaism till you're blue in the tooth. The only reason I pointed out your scriptural reference is because you were referring to Jews, not to Zionists. And I believe you dropped your guard. And I believe that you have an issue with the Jewish people.
I don't have an issue with the Jewish people. I'm just making an argument that from what I'm seeing, the crimes being committed by Zionists and some Jews, you have Orthodox Jews who are committing crimes against humanity as religious people, as people who claim to be a part of the Abrahamic faith. I've done shows on shows about Islamic extremism, about ISIS, and I've used scripture to say that this is wrong. Now, as a people who claim to be part of the Abrahamic faith, to claim to be, righteous people, and they are acting in certain ways which go against the religion, of course I'm going to bring up scripture. You got rabbis that are promoting killing of children, yeah? So I'm trying to take you back to the scripture where there was a time where your people were disobedient, and I'm telling you, come back to God. I'm telling you, come back to God and stop rebelling.
So Zoubida, I'd just like to say that, look, I think that what often happens in discussions, and I think this is always really helpful to try and find some kind of common ground, it's like when you actually look at abstract principles, like you're saying, some Jews are religious people and they're defending what you consider to be indefensible. Now, what we're actually disagreeing is we have the same principles. Everybody, I think, all four of us, I know Joseph does, I think Waleed also and yourself would agree that killing innocent people is wrong. I think we all agree on that principle. Where we have an argument is over the actual factual, concrete situation where we have our opinion, and yes, you have your opinion. Now, of course, probably we'll never agree, but I think it's not intellectually honest to look at us. We don't think that killing innocent people is okay. And we are troubled by the fact that Palestinian children, Palestinian women, innocent people are getting killed. But we believe that the right address, the moral and legal responsibility for those deaths lies with Hamas, and that's what we disagree on. So please, you can when you bring it to religion, I think that's actually doing a disservice, because really, we should be trying to find, like I said, common ground where we can try and move forward and try and have, okay, we're not going to agree on everything, but like I said, we think, we think if you look at what Hamas stands for, they say in their charter that Israel exists and it will continue to exist until it is obliterated. Now, as a Jew, as an Israeli, as someone who's lived in Israel now and who supports the idea, I have family that was persecuted. My entire family, and obviously this is not the responsibility of the Palestinians. I'm not trying to make that argument, but what I'm saying is there is a concrete Jewish history of suffering and persecution to the point of genocide. Now, as a result of that, we decided
Agreed
long
with
before the
Israel.
show.
How
Can I,
come
can, I,
genocide
can, can I finish my point?
So, that the year before.
So we decided that the best solution, because we lived amongst non-Jews for 2,000 years, and they basically intermittently kicked the shit out of us and tried to kill us. So we decided independently that the best solution for everybody is that we would go back to the place that we came from. Now, if you can't agree that we came from Israel, now then it's a really difficult conversation to have, because we're not. I mean, that's just a fact of recorded history that Jewish people originate.
Okay. If I'm going
Jewish
to
culture originates in the land of Israel. So, as I said to you before, we can have a conversation about whether what rights Jews have in Israel and what rights Palestinian Arabs have in Israel, and we can say, well, what's the best way to accommodate all of those rights? But if one side is going to say, well, actually, these people don't have any rights, then there's no basis for a discussion, because if you're
can I just respond to why I brought up religion? I don't know if you're a religious Jew, yeah, but as you know, the term holy is always mentioned in a lot of these arguments. You know, the Palestine, Jerusalem is a holy place for you, for the Christians, and for the Muslims. So as holy people, then there is a way to behave. And for what I'm seeing, what's happening all over the place is unholy, bro. So that's why I brought up religion, because if we, because again, when he says to me, underneath Al-Aqsa Mosque, there's a holy site for us, which for me indicates that potentially they're after the Aqsa Mosque because their holy site is underneath there. Sometimes they took it as a holy state for the Jews as well. So this is why I'm bringing up religion, And second of all, the Jews have a right to be there as citizens, as people who have a home. No one, I'm not against that, bro. Like I said, as somebody that's half North African, we had a large Jewish community spread out in North Africa, the Sephardic Jews. That's where they went, where they were expelled. You had some that went north, some that went west. They came to us, yeah? So I'm not against that. But if you look at the demographics of Palestinians and Israelis from 1947 to now, it's shifted. There's more Israelis, which indicates that where are those previous Palestinians that were there in the first place? They were either killed or they were either exiled. You look at the neighboring states, they've taken so many refugees. Why have the indigenous people of that land now become refugees? So, it's not an equal thing. For instance, there's 50% Palestinians, 50% Jews, and a couple Christians. That would be fair. But that's not what the demographics are looking like. They've changed from 1947 in your favor. So you can't sit here and talk about peace when you've kicked everybody out, you've murdered a bunch of people. I want peace now. It doesn't work like that.
So let's deal with that, and then we'll wrap it up, because we've been going for a long time. Can I come in on that? You did last time. I just want to respond to that as well. So I think you've mentioned a lot of times about Palestinians being the indigenous people. And Waleed, you said there was a country called Palestine. I think your understanding of who's lived in the land is hugely flawed. And it's very easy for you to go and look this up. And I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to tell you where to look. I'm going to give you the basic facts. And I hope you go away and research this. So in 1882...
Declaration... Listen.
Waleed,
1 second, please.
Waleed.
1 second.
You can have a go and you can tell me all about the Balfour Declaration.
One sentence, because I can't respond after.
Okay.
The fact you're talking about there was no Palestine, but in Balfour Declaration, it's written, inside the Balfour Declaration, it's written that we promised the Jew that it's going to be land for them where in Palestine.
Okay, so if there was a country called Palestine, Waleed,
even they give you the declaration, there was Palestine. Yeah,
Waleed, if there was a country called Palestine, can you tell me who its ruler was? Just one of them.
Repeat the question, please.
If there was a country called Palestine, can you tell me who one of their rulers were?
Who would have? It was the Ottoman. It was the Ottoman Empire, and listen. I can't hear you now at all.
Okay, got no sound, Joe.
I can't hear you at all.
They were Turks. They weren't Palestinians. The Ottomans
were
Turks.
The Ottoman Empire. It was the empire. The Egyptian in Egypt, the Palestinian in Palestine, the Jordan in Jordan, but all following the Khilafah in Turkey. But it was the Palestinian.
But Turks aren't Palestinians.
So who was the What we want to know is who was the first or even the second or third or fourth ruler of the country called Palestine.
Okay, so what happened is after the Ottoman Empire, the British won the war with them, and they occupied Egypt and Palestine. And when before they left, because the Zionist people bombed their hotel in Gaza, they wrote the Balfour Declaration, and they bring this Israeli people today. So before
so you agree there was never a country called Palestine?
No, there was a Palestine, but didn't have the chance. After the Ottoman Empire finished, they didn't have the chance to.
That's fine, Waleed. You're talking about a potential country. You're saying there could have been a country called Palestine, but there wasn't. That's your argument.
No, it was there.
You're doing is trying to even justify your claim. This is what most of these Israelis do. You actually have Jewish people, like, I know you can find it funny, but Seth Rogen, for instance, a Jewish comedian, you've got other Jews that come out and openly say that they are being taught in their schools by Jewish rabbis that Palestine didn't even exist. So
There's never, ever in the history of country
what does the Balfour Declaration say? The Balfour Declaration says we will give Palestine over to them to make
Do you know why Europeans called it?
Palestine?
Do you know why Europeans called the region Palestine? Do you know the history?
All I know is that the Romans called it Philistine.
So the Romans renamed the region Syria Palestina. Yeah, after the Philistines. The Philistines were the Jews' original enemies in the Bible. Pelishtim is the Hebrew word. They came from Greece and they conquered. They came from Greece, or the Greek area, from over the Aegean Sea. They conquered a small region near Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gaza City.
Just to prove that it was existed from thousands of years. The original enemies.
Do you know what Pelishtim means in Hebrew? Do you know what this means? It means invaders. So the Palestinians are claiming that they are original. If they're claiming they're descended from the Palestinians or from the ancient Philistines, which they certainly used to claim this. I don't know if they do anymore because they changed their story fairly regularly, the leadership at least. So they were claiming that they're descended from these people. Well, these people were invaders from the sea. They're not indigenous people. I don't particularly want to go down that line.
I just want to get to the main point. So the quick condensed history for you, Zoubida, because you don't know it, is that when the Romans put down the Jewish revolt, they renamed the region that stretched from the Nile all the way up to Turkey, and they call that entire region Syria Palestina. Romans were European. From that point on, Europeans largely referred to the region as Palestine. It was a European word. When the Balfour
I don't know about that, because the European who called Egypt is called the Misr. You know, Egypt is the real name of Egypt is Misr. So how come they called it Palestina and Egypt? They called, and you saying that Egypt was inside Palestina?
Because Palestine, Syria, that's where Syria comes from. It comes from the same. But you're right. Egypt was that, and in Hebrew we call it similar. It's Mitzri. It's Mitzrayim. And Al-Masri is actually one of the most common surnames in Gaza, because most Gazans actually come from Egypt rather than Israel. But that's all a tangent. The main point I'm trying to hammer home here is the term Palestine was a European term used to describe the region. It was used in some Arabic sources. That name did persist, but there was never, ever in the history of the Arab people a country called Palestine. Never. And who is considered a Palestinian refugee today is anybody who is Arab, and wait for it, it gets stupid, who has a paternal, so not maternal, so a father, a grandfather, a great-great-great-great-grandfather that lived there for 2 years or more between 1946 and 1948. So any Arab who has a paternal link to someone who lived there for 2 years is considered a Palestinian refugee. And why this is important is if you had an Iraqi father, a great-great-grandfather who was from Iraq, and he moved there, like many did, in 1945 to work, attracted to the economic opportunities that British imperialism, colonialism brought, and Zionist economic expansion brought to the region. If you were an economic migrant, you can claim yourself as a Palestinian refugee. Yeah. So whoever
is the minority, I agree with you.
Waleed, this is recent history. This is 1946. What happened was in 1882, the Ottomans took a census of how many Muslims lived in the region in 1882. It was 270,000. By 1946, that had ballooned to 1.26 million people. It was the largest population explosion in the Middle East. Why? Because Arabs from all over the Middle East between 1882 and 1946, when the British took a census in the Village Statistics Report, when they took the census, they found that there had been a huge population explosion because people had been attracted. And that's why the word you just cited, Masri, Al-Masri, is one of the most common surnames amongst Palestinians.
That's what you said. That's what you said.
Zoubida, you mentioned that you were from North Africa or part North African. Al-Maghrebi is one of the most common surnames amongst Palestinians. Why is somebody living in that region have the surname Maghrebi, which for the people who are watching is probably Morocco, that sort of region. Region in North Africa.
Because there is one door in the Al-Aqsa mosque called the Moroccan.
There's never, ever been a country called Palestine. Palestinian national identity was really born in the 60s in any meaningful way. And your issue is a Muslim issue. It's not a Palestinian issue, because you said that it was controlled by the Ottomans. And what that's code for is it was controlled by Muslims. And so you can say Muslim sovereignty, but you can't accept Jewish sovereignty.
No. My problem is, my prophet passed this mosque, and this mosque is holy for me from 1400 years. And this 1400 years, I didn't hear anything about all what you're saying till the Holocaust happened. After the Holocaust happened, all these stories, all this funding, all this war came to the Middle East. Since you came to the Middle East become on fire, and since Israel started, you divided all the nations, you spend the money corrupting, you did wars here. Since you want me to love you, I have families who died, who innocent family, and died from the Israeli army in Egypt, and you want me to love you. They didn't do nothing to you. They were living happily in Sinai, and because you wanted to scare them, you hit the schools and they killed them. And you want me to love you? Listen, you didn't come to the Middle East with candy. Yeah, you came sick and we looked after you, but you didn't come and show love or anything. No, we who showed you.
I can ask you a question.
So when you talk, you can talk, and no one else can talk. Don't try to make the narrative. Wallahi, what I'm saying is you using. Allah, make me forget your point. Say whatever you want. But please don't do that again.
I just want to read.
Can I say something?
My English is not equal to any one of you three here. Yeah, English. So please, when I talk, let me go so I can, because it's hard for me to translate, get history, translate. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'd say is that when Jews first came back to what was then known colloquially as Palestine, beginning in the 1880s, and Jews had certainly come back in small numbers before that. But when Jews just started coming back with the modern Zionist movement. Now, if you actually read the original Zionists, and again, this is where I'm talking about the actual people who came, who were inspired by the ideas of Aleph Dalet Gordon or Khada'am or Martin Buber or Bill Katz-Nelson, various other Zionist scholars. If you actually read what these people said, they spoke overwhelmingly about building up the country for the benefit of everybody who lived there. Now, obviously, we know that history didn't pan out that way, but the intentions of Jews came back to Palestine with good intentions. I'm not saying that some of them didn't have ideas that were common in their time, which we would certainly disagree with now in the 21st century, just as Arabs also in that time had ideas that I would hope we would disagree with in the 21st century. But Jews came back with good intentions. They came back legally with the permission of the authorities. They bought land, often at very highly inflated prices.
And the biggest example, and
Hold
the
on.
biggest example.
Can I just finish this, Waleed? Right. The thing is, when whether you think that this was the right decision or the wrong decision, the fact is that when Arabs began attacking Jews had to make a choice. They had to make a choice. Do we abandon our national project? Do we give away our country? And accept that essentially that our lives are cheap, or do we stand our ground and fight for our lives? And we fought for our lives, and thank God we won. And to ask us to apologize for that, I think it's just
it wasn't us persecuting you, bro. It was
I'm not saying it was you personally, but
we looked after you. That's exactly what happened.
I'm saying it's established history.
I just want to bring one point. Zoubida,
you and Joseph now.
I'll just make this point, and then you. Sorry, go on.
You and Joseph now keep saying that you decided to come back. You decided to come back, and the whole world need to follow your wishes. So when you want to leave, you leave, and when you want to come back, the whole world, you need to listen.
We did not want to leave.
Let me finish. I didn't respond to all what you're saying. I didn't respond to all what you're saying. Mashi, this is the first thing you said. You said you decided to come back, and when you decided to come back, you said you came with good intention. And the best example for your good intention is your war with 1948, and how many wars you win, as you said, and how many people you killed. From 72 years, you keep killing people, and the people throwing rocks in you, just rocks, and you call them terrorists. The people were throwing rocks for 72 years in front of the whole world.
How many rocks can someone throw at you? 10 rocks? You won't do anything? People can throw rocks at your head.
Give me a gun, and no one will throw a rock on me. Give me one gun, and no one will touch me with a rock.
So you have the same standard as us. We agree with you. We agree with each other.
No. I don't have the same standards. They defend themselves. I will be the aggressor. I will be the dirty one if I'm holding gun in front of a stone. And they didn't start with the stone. They started when you started to shoot women and the children, and they didn't found anything to defend themselves, only rocks, and they started to throw it.
So I just want to.
Are you familiar with the? You do know that with the Balfour Declaration in 1917, Palestinians began attacking Jewish refugees. And Jews who've been living in Palestine.
Palestinians started to defend themselves. I know that they was living in peace, and then because promise between England and Israel, England is not her land, and Israel they have to do the same.
You're an immigrant.
So they defended themselves.
Can I ask you a question?
I've been trying to make this point for a long time.
Just one last thing.
No, I've got to make this, because this mistruth is continuously said. And it said that Jews live peacefully under Muslims in that region and the wider Muslim world. So I'm just going to read out some facts now. In 1146, the Almohad captured Moroccan cities of Fez and Marrakesh and slaughtered 100,000 Jews. Jews were offered Islam again in Meknes or death, and they were massacred. The Jews of Baghdad in 1290 were massacred. Yeah, in 1517, in Hebron, in what you would call Palestine, what we would call Israel. Yeah, the Ottomans massacred the Jews in 1517. In 1736, the Jews of Algiers were massacred. In 1776, the Jews of Basra in Iraq were massacred. In 1785, in Tripoli, which is Libya, hundreds of Jews were massacred because they refused to convert to Islam. In 1790, the Sultan Yazid ordered the murder and rape of Jews. They literally, in 1805, the Muslims massacred 500 Jews in Algiers, again in Algeria. History is not on your side. You keep on saying we lived peacefully in coexistence. We didn't. Sometimes it was good.
I will debunk your statement. We have 10 million Christians who live in Egypt. Yes, there is accent that happen, but the fact is,
churches are bombed
between the Muslims. Listen. I said, what? No, I dare you. We have 10 million live there. When there is accent to happen, the other people who defended the Muslim.
They're
who
the
defend
most
any Christian.
persecuted, one of the most persecuted Christian communities in the world. How
That's
dare
what you
hold them
say in
up?
your media. That's what you're trying to say, because Egypt is a Muslim country, and if you said that, you're gonna prove Islam is right. But the fact is, 10 million is not a small number, and they live in peacefully. The oldest church in Egypt still exists. Even before Islam, anything built before Islam belonging to Christianity or Judaism still exists. So the fact is, Islam is no hate in any religion. Islam, it didn't order us to. Umar ibn al-Khattab was the third Khalifa after the Prophet died, and he is the one that allowed you to come back to Palestine after the Roman was kicking you out and killing you and doing the most to you. After that, Amr ibn al-As in Iraq, he was the one to bring you to Iraq back again. So the Muslim who protected you through the whole history. Yes, we agree there is accident happen, but it doesn't represent all Islam or all of us Muslims.
I agree with that, Waleed. What I'm saying is it's been terrible for us at times and it's been good for us at times. But we would rather live under our own autonomy than under Islam. I don't want to pay the jizya. I don't want to be one of the dhimma. I don't want the protection of the Khalifa.
Is Israel run by?
Is there anyone being jizya in the whole world right now? Is there anyone being jizya right now in the whole world?
You say that you want to live under your own law. Is Israel being governed by Mosaic law, Judaic law? Is it very secular?
No, I didn't say under my. I said I wanted to live under Jewish autonomy, not Jewish law. I don't think Israel is ready to live under Jewish law. I wouldn't trust the rabbis that we have today to run the state in accordance to halakha. So no, I've never said that. In Israel isn't. There's a detachment from church and state, or synagogue and state. The only religious laws that exist in Israel are in relation to marriage, and that was inherited from the British. Can
I ask you a question quickly?
Who inherited it from the
We're running out of time, but I just want to ask you something briefly. How do you feel? Because how do you feel about the persecution or racism that's happening towards the Ethiopian Jews as well? Do you agree that that's happening, or do you?
I don't agree that it's happening. I agree that there are racists in Israel, like there's racists in every country. But the state spent millions and millions and millions risking the lives of many Israeli citizens to bring the Ethiopian Jewish community to Israel. They have complete equality. They're governed by the same laws as anyone else. I don't believe that the racism that you read about in outlets like Al Jazeera exists at all. I do believe there are Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs who are racist against Ethiopians. Absolutely.
Okay,
just like
last question. Do you believe that there's anything bad that the Israeli state has done, or the IDF?
Many things bad that they've done. Yeah.
I don't know if you're being sarcastic or genuine.
No, I'm being deadly serious. It's a secular democracy. It's done many things wrong. There's many things that
Does the Palestinian have the right to defend themselves from these bad acts?
Sorry, can I just, before we answer that question,
please, I want to answer for this question. We answered all your questions. We answered all your questions, please. Does the Palestinian have the right to defend themselves from these bad acts you agreed that the Israeli people doing?
So I don't believe that Israel is doing bad acts to the Palestinians. I believe Palestinian leadership, not the Palestinians, so Hamas.
I just proved your hypocrisy. That's why I wanted
to answer right now.
Because you just admitted they doing bad acts there, and the only people who live in there with them are the Palestinians. So they doing these bad acts. And sure anyone in the world have the right to defend them.
Yeah, right. You've asked us whether we think there's bad things that Israel has done, or the Israeli government. Of course there are. Like, coming back to this question of Ethiopians, and not just Ethiopians, there's many times when the Israeli government's made bad policy decisions in the way that they've integrated different Jewish communities. But what I wanted to ask you, Zoubida, is do you think that the Palestinians have made any mistakes in the history of the conflict? And could you give some examples?
Yeah, of course. I believe that they lacked strong leadership. You know, one thing I will say I agree with Joseph is about fighting for Islam rather than a nation, because Islamically we're against nationalism. So it's about the self-determination for Muslim people under Islam. Because what I find is every time that a Muslim country has tried to establish a Sharia state, they won't allow it. But for some reason, the Jewish people can have a Jewish state where,
We
you know,
don't have a Sharia state.
you have a Jewish state, bro.
We don't have
No,
a
there's the Islamic Republic of Iran, there's the there's Saudi Arabia. There are many, many, many Muslim states. You said run by the Sharia. Many of these countries are run by the Sharia. You may not interpret their version of the Sharia. So I'm sorry. You may not agree with the ulama in the various sheikhs and rulers in these countries. You may think that they are deviant and they're deviating from Islam, but they are trying to base their legal system on their interpretation, whether it's Wahhabi, whether it's Shia.
They won't allow it. The Western world won't allow it, my friend.
Hear me out. Israel is not run by any Jewish laws. As I mentioned, the only Jewish law is in relation to who can marry who, and that was inherited by the British, who inherited by the Ottomans. So it's originally a Muslim thing that we inherited. So your arguments are just not founded on what actually happened. Israel is not a Sharia state in the same way that Saudi Arabia or Iran or it's not a religious state. It's a secular law it's a Western democracy in almost every way you could look at it.
I mean, I don't know if you're going
one other thing, if your criticism of the Palestinian leadership, if your criticism is that they're not Muslim enough, that's pathetic, because they're literally they take the Palestinian Authority, the moderates, not even the Islamists who share the same ideology as ISIS, Hamas. We're literally talking the moderates, the Palestinian Authority. They will pay the salaries of Arabs who murder Jews. The more Jews you murder, the greater the payout. They actually spend 3% of their national budget on these salaries. Yeah, the easiest way to get rich if you're a Palestinian is to kill Jews, and you're guaranteed that even if you're sent to jail,
that's a bit of over-exaggeration, a bit of a conspiracy.
I mean, it's genuinely not. You find me across the path. It's an
Mahmoud Abbas has said if he only had one shekel, he would give it to the martyrs.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, just to close up my point, because I know we're running out of time. For me personally, I feel like what's happening now in 2021 is a huge injustice to what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And I urge you, the same way that because throughout this conversation, there's certain things that I've definitely learned, but I also urge you as well to look deep as to what's happening in Palestine. I mean, I can send you videos and videos of, the IDF throwing tear gas in close range of women and children just in their face. There is this level of arrogance and dictatorship amongst the IDF, specifically to the way that they treat Palestinians. I've seen IDF soldiers beat up Muslim women, beat up photographers. Again, during Ramadan, a holy month, coming there, antagonizing the Muslim community, and again, I'm going to bring it back to religion, because I believe in God, you believe in God. Allah will hold those accountable in the day of judgment, as far as I'm concerned. There will always be justice, on this earth, and those who do injustice will have a painful punishment, no matter who it is. So at the end of the day, and Allah says to the Muslims, we need to unite, as far as I'm concerned. Not unite for the fact to hurt the Jews, unite the fact to protect ourselves, because there is an injustice that's happening as we speak. And I see a bit of a change in what's happening in the way that the media is dealing with this issue. There are more people who are waking up. I know that you've asked people to come down on Sunday, which for me is a bit disappointing, because it's not your people that are being oppressed the way that the Palestinians are being oppressed. It's like, you see somebody getting beaten up, and then somebody gets beaten up and you get a little slap. I don't care about that person getting beaten up. Focus on me that got that little slap. Instead, you could have showed solidarity with the Palestinian people who are being killed and slaughtered right now as we speak. So go on.
I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens your heart and has mercy on you for standing with Hamas, opens your heart and helps you to step away from the genocidal terrorists that want to destroy the Jews, and stand with those that have been persecuted throughout history, who try their utmost to preserve civilian lives, that try to minimize casualties, be they Palestinian or Jewish. I hope he guides you and opens your heart and opens your eyes so that you can truly see the devastation that Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and groups like these are the devastation they're causing, not just for Israelis, but for the entire region. You are standing with the very people that have led to the death.
Can you stop saying that? I stand with Hamas, please, because that's a misrepresentation.
Okay, sorry. So if you free yourself from Hamas, then you don't have. So could you just say that for us, please? Could you say you free yourself from Hamas?
Would you free yourself from the IDF?
No, I stand with the IDF.
Okay, you stand with the IDF then, so I'm not compelled to do anything.
So you're not going to free yourself from Hamas?
IDF and Hamas, what's the difference, bro?
Can I explain to you what the difference is? The IDF is the army of a democratic state that's under civilian oversight, and Hamas is a group of Islamic extremists who have a charter obligation to obliterate their neighbour state and to murder every Jew on the planet.
The clue is in the name, Zoubida. Israeli Defense Force. Defense.
Tzava Haganah Yisrael. It's the Israeli Defense Force. The name, in fact, if you go back, why does it take this name? When Jews, the first Jewish army that was set up by the Jewish Agency in Mandatory Palestine, when it was British run, it was called the Haganah. It was called the Defense. That it was founded because Palestinians had started to attack Jewish refugees and Jews who've been living in Palestine for thousands of years, and Jews formed a force to guard against Arab attacks. And that's just a look. You can, like we said before, you can argue if you want to that Palestinians attacking Jews was the right thing to do. What you can't say is that it didn't happen, or that Jews weren't defending themselves from Arab-initiated attacks. Now, as I said, you can say that you think that the Palestinians in Mandatory Palestine were doing the right thing to attack Jews, but you can't then say that Jews responding to that are doing something unreasonable, because you're essentially, you want to have your cake and eat it. You can choose between one or either position. You can say that Jews shouldn't defend themselves, but in that case, you can't support Arabs attacking Jews.
But I would say one thing. I do appreciate you coming on the channel and talking to us. I don't think we've found that much common ground. Can
I just say one last thing? Yeah. Just a quick quote by Awni Abdul Hadi, who said, "The Balfour Declaration was made by an English foreigner who had no claim to Palestine to a foreign Jew who had no right to it." And that's my closing statement.
Okay, so I can answer that, because actually you say that the British made this promise. The Balfour Declaration was essentially, it wasn't a promise. It was a signal of British policy written to a representative of the Zionist movement. It has, in legal terms, the Balfour Declaration has virtually no, as a standalone document, has virtually no legal significance whatsoever. It became to have significance after World War I because of the treaty obligations that Ottoman Turkey took upon itself. So when people say that the British gave Palestine to the Jews, that's not actually true. The Turks, who were the sovereign up until 1917, everyone agrees that in 1917, before the British arrived, that the Ottomans were the legal sovereign. They lost a war. As a result of that war, they signed over their sovereignty to the principal Allied powers, which was the United States, England, Italy, France, and Japan. And they basically said, look, you can decide what to do. You can decide what the future of these areas. And it wasn't just Israel or Palestine. It was also Syria. It was also what's now Saudi Arabia, what's now Kuwait, what's now Iraq, what is now Jordan. It said to these countries, you've defeated us in war. You should decide. We're handing our sovereignty over to you in these areas for you to decide what you think the best thing to do is. And what did they do? They had something called the Paris Peace Conference. So they got together. Representatives from the Arab world spoke there. Representatives from the Zionist movement spoke there. As I said earlier, the Palestinian leadership were invited to make representations to tell these 5 parties what they thought the future of the area should be, and they refused to send anyone. So they can't then simultaneously claim that decisions were made without them. They were invited to give their input. Now, if they'd given their input and been ignored, they might have a stronger case. But if a court invites you to make representations and you refuse, you can't then complain about the decision that the court made.
Waleed, would you like to give your closing statement now, and then I'll do my closing statement, which is in direct response to what Zoubida said. I've got the perfect reply.
Okay, my closing statement is that if you want the truth, everyone is scared to talk from the media, scared for your terms anti-Semitic and stuff like that. But I'm Arab, and I'm your cousin, my cousin. So I'm gonna talk to you like my cousin, and I'm gonna talk. If you dirty, I will tell you dirty in your face, and no one can call me anti-Semitic. So we Arab, we love peace. And our Islam taught us to be peaceful to everyone. And if you in Israel want peace, stop killing children and stop killing women, and like that, there will be peace. Sure, the peace will be there, but you don't allow anyone to join this peace. If this happens, this is the only way. Any other way will never work, because it is in our heart. It is a message I took it from my dad, who talked to it from his granddad, which I will teach it to my son, and I will ask him, when the time comes, you need to stand next to your Palestinian brothers and sisters. This is a Muslim land. This is a Muslim land, and it is duty to any Muslim to protect it, but with the right ways and with the legal ways. And one day, all why you supporting is America. America, when any conflict happen there, when any problem happen there, you will never have someone to back you, and this is where will be your lose. Don't be happy that you spent there 72 years or something. This is something in our Islam, in our Quran. It is mentioned. Fact, you will never change it. So the better thing, better than you debating us and telling us that we wrong, is better to go to your people, ask them, stop killing children, and there is a chance to peace. You live next to the Muslim people who love peace. Just stop killing children, and it will be peaceful for every single one there. We like how we lived before you chose and decided to come back to Palestine. We were living there peacefully. There were Jews, there was Christians living peacefully there. And you came and you decided all these wars. And now you fact just ask them to stop killing children and women. That's my
So my closing comments are really simple. First, it's been absolutely fantastic to see Waleed go from saying that we're not Semitic, we're not Jewish, we're not his cousins, to closing comments with him saying that we are his cousin. So, alhamdulillah, we at least admit we're family. And like all families, hopefully we will be able to work through this dispute. I genuinely pray for peace every day, as every single Jew does 3 times a day. We pray for peace on the world. We pray for peace between Israelis, Palestinians, and the wider region. So I pray for peace. I pray that the Palestinians are able to free themselves from the ISIS wannabes, Hamas, who are born out of Ikhwan, who literally want to establish a global caliphate and genocide the Jewish people and kill the Jews wherever they find them. I hope the Palestinians free themselves from these tyrants. I hope the Palestinians have elections. They haven't had elections in over 15 years. I hope the Palestinians, I pray that the Palestinians have a better quality of life, and I pray that the Arab world frees itself from the aggression that has led to millions of Arabs, millions of Muslims losing their lives over the various decades. It will not come at the expense of the Jewish state. We will not be defeated. We will not be overpowered. We will outlive those that seek to destroy us. And inshallah, we'll make peace with them, just like we made peace with the UAE, with Morocco, and with all the other Arab states. Now, Zoubida, you mentioned only by Abdul Hadi. And I would like to end on another one of his quotes, seeing as though we're quoting him as a trusted source. And it comes back to what we were saying earlier. This is Oni Bey Abdul Hadi speaking to the British in the Peel Commission. I think in the Peel Commission, I'll check this. There is no such country as Palestine. Palestine is a term the Zionists invented. And that, seeing as though we're referencing him, I thought I'd bring an equally strong quote of his, denying that Palestine was a Palestinian word and it was actually a Zionist term, and it was. All the early Palestinians.
And we've also established that anti-Semitism came from an anti-Jewish person, which you still benefit from to this day.
We don't benefit from
anti-Semitism. We don't benefit from anti-Semitism.
Well, it's been thrown at me at least 3 times today. And how many
Waleed, Zoubida, do you want to shout out your channels? Because people have been asking in the comments where they can watch your videos. Do you want to tell them where they can find them?
My channel is Zoubida Al-Arabiya. I'm going to do aftermath after this anyway. Go ahead, Waleed.
My channel is Wala TV. I don't do any, I just record and share. And I am advocate for Palestine. Make sure you join me because I'm going to be hard on my cousins. I'm going to be their nightmares.
And if you'd like to see the Israel advocacy movement, educate more ill-informed people, you can support us via Patreon, or you can just follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, all the social medias, except TikTok. We're not as young as you, Zoubida. We're a little older, a few more grey hairs in the beard. But yeah, thank you for engaging us. Inshallah, we'll know peace. Thank you for joining us. Thanks everyone for watching.
Just say one thing that we should maybe didn't realise, but actually it's been announced while we've been on air that there is a ceasefire. That's going from 2 in the morning, I believe. So
thank God.
So please God, we'll see peace in the region very soon.
In Israel, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace.